Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another week of movie fun with MovieKombat.
MovieKombat.
This is the what episode is this one? 7. Episode 7. We have now officially entered in to the xenomorph side of the timeline.
Yes.
If you guys didn't know, if you're just joining and you just saw the title of this episode, which probably just says Prometheus, our podcast is a spoiler friendly. I was trying to figure out. It's not free.
Spoiler filled.
It was spoiler filled, friendly. It's all sorts of spoilers are going to happen in this episode. What we do is week by week, we go through and watch a movie. You guys on the other end go and watch the movie. You come back here, you sit your butt down and you plug in your earphones and you listen to this, which we walk through the movie. And then at the very end of our little walkthrough, we tell you some fun facts and whatnot. Joining me on this magical journey is...
Hey, it's Josh.
And my name is Ryan, and this is Primal Target's MovieKombat, the official movie podcast of Primal Target. Now that we got that out of the way, how do you want to do this, man? You want to intro this one? Since you,
sure.
Since I introed, and then you kick us off here in our walkthrough here.
Okay. First and foremost, I would just like to say that it opens with music, and I love the music to this movie. It's great. Like I got the soundtrack to it, because the music's excellent. The opening theme song is probably my favorite out of it, but it's just really epic. I'm not really sure. I guess we can look up the stats on who wrote it.
The thing about the music is it reminded me of Soarin' over California, or Soarin', which is a Disneyland ride.
Oh, okay.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play you a quick little snippet of the Disneyland Soarin', and then I'm going to play you the beginning of Prometheus, okay?
Okay.
I'm only enough so that we don't get copyright strike. Let me see here. But go ahead and fill in. Keep talking about why you like the music so much.
So, yeah, and then basically accompanying the music is just really good shots of a planet. I mean, you would assume it's Earth just simply because, but you don't necessarily know, because obviously we're watching movies about space aliens and shit. So, but yeah, you just see, like, basically waterfalls and then a vast open expanse of grassland and rivers and rocks. And then all of a sudden it pulls up and you see trees and forests and mountains.
What does that sound like to you? Does that sound like the Prometheus song?
Yeah, it kind of does.
It's Soarin' over California.
I mean, I can tell that's not the same one, but it's very similar. I mean, it reminds me a lot too of
let me see if I can also get
like Planet Earth. It's just really good, like symphonic, orchestral,
cinematic, like music type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely was like it had that, because the whole time this is happening is it's having the scenery shots and whatnot. So
yeah, and I put primitive planetary shots because as we pan up, we start to go upwards, like up a waterfall. And you see a spaceship of some sort, like hovering in the clouds, and it's starting to take off. And then you see a figure walk up onto this like ledge on the waterfall, right? And he takes off this robe, and you can clearly see he's not human. He's a humanoid alien of some sort. He's this big, gray, pale-looking dude. And this epic music's playing all at the same time. He's looking up at the sky with his big black eyes, and he's watching the ship take off. And then he takes this little, like, jar of goo. It's this weird, like, gold stuff. And it's like gold. It's like gold, glittery, weird, colored, gooey stuff. And he chugs it down, right? And then he goes, which I always laugh at. I just think it's really funny when he does that part. But then all of a sudden he just starts dissolving, like he just starts falling apart. His skin starts going away, and he dissolves, and he falls down. His arm falls to pieces, and he falls into the river. And then
I have to say, at this time though, I don't know why I found it so funny, but when he drops the cup, it makes a nice dung.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like,
Yes.
what the heck is happening?
The sound effects in this movie are on point for sure.
They're
like,
pretty funny.
I really
You mentioned
enjoyed
the
them.
hockey puck ship.
But yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
right.
Because
I was trying to
didn't
focus on
necessarily,
finding that music.
I didn't necessarily say the shape, but yeah, it was kind of like just a disc essentially. And
It's like a throwing rock.
yeah, and then and then we see basically when he falls into the water, this goo stuff that he drank dissolves his DNA, and then his DNA merges with a bunch of stuff in the water, and then it basically spawns like new DNA, and essentially you're led to believe that it was the catalyst for life.
Yep. And then we get a little bit of a like where the date is. 2089 is an excavation. Is when our main characters finally find where the watch out for your wire there.
Yeah,
Little-
I can't get it to not. It's like
Oh, there you go. You're probably good now.
oh that wire.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one's I can't. It's being difficult with me today.
But yeah, so we get an excavation of our main characters here. Or most of them. I mean, the main girl, the girl.
Like yeah,
her name is Elizabeth Shaw.
Yeah, in her
Dr. Elizabeth Shaw.
Main.
And her hubby or
protagonist.
Squeeze or whatever, not her husband.
Yeah, they're just boyfriend.
Yeah, they
girlfriend.
don't mention. Well, hush, boyfriend, girlfriend. I think because it seemed like weird. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I mean, they never explicitly say that they're in a relationship. I mean, you find out later in the movie, but I don't think it was like anything they were trying to hide necessarily.
Yeah,
I
it was
just
just
don't.
something that's like, hey, you know.
Yeah, the romance in this movie is pushed to the back burner. There's like very little romantic stuff.
But then after they find the cave painting pointing to these rocks or planetary shapes that indicate that they're from another being or whatever.
35,000 years old, they say.
We get jumped over a little over a decade, or well, less than a decade, about 4 years. 4 years is 2093. The crew of 17 on Prometheus.
I wrote a quote here because when they find these cave paintings and they see this thing pointing at the heavens or whatever, Shaw says they want us to come find them because she's essentially being like, oh, I think we're invited.
Yeah, I don't know if that was an invitation.
Yeah. And then because it cuts to the Prometheus like immediately after that.
But then we get to be introduced to everyone is sleeping except for one person, David, being played by Michael Fassbender.
Yeah, the best character in this movie.
And he's like checking everybody, and apparently there's like a computer system to see dreams, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's like I forget what he called. He says
I call it a dream viewer, but
he does say the name of the device. I think he says it's like a neural visor or something like that because he disconnects from it later on because he uses it again, and it says something like disconnecting from neural visor or something. And that's not the name, I don't think, but it's something along those lines. But I just called it a dream machine.
But he loves basketball and but also loves basketball on a bike.
Oh,
He
right,
was riding
yeah.
his bike and
one of my favorite things about David is that he models himself after an actor of an old like 1930s, 40s, or 50s movie. I don't know. It's
yeah,
in
I
color,
didn't know
so
what
it's
he
gotta
was
be old.
watching, but he did repeat the line. The trick is not minding that it hurts.
Yeah.
And then David repeats the movie he was watching, and then they all get. There's like an not evacuation thing, but like a little siren thing that essentially. God, I always forget her name. Oh, Charlize Theron is
Right. Yeah.
She wakes up. Her character Meredith Vickers.
Yeah. Vickers.
And then she asks David like how long they've been asleep, and then he said 2 years, 4 months, 18 days, and then he went on to say like minutes and seconds too. I'm like, I'm not about to write that down, but I was like, man, they've been asleep for 2 years.
Yeah. They come upon what like set the alarm off was they come upon a large planet, which is. I looked up a little information about this because I wanted to know what planet it was, and it's a moon circling a gas giant. And this particular moon that they come upon is LV-223, which is not the same one from any of the other films, but it's like in close proximity to another planet that's part of like one of the other movies or something.
Okay, but they also do talk about the what do you call it? Oh wait, no wait, never mind. That's a little bit later.
Oh.
Never mind. I was about to say something, but then
Yeah.
never mind.
Oh yeah, because we meet the captain pretty much immediately after we meet Vickers,
Yes.
which is Idris Elba's character. I forget what his name. Something or other.
I wrote it down later, so I have that written down later on.
I just called him Captain Elba.
Captain Elba.
Yeah, and
why is he not in a lot of movies?
I think.
I mean, he's in movies, but he's not like. Have you noticed like all the people that are in this movie that are big actors are kind of like not usually a leading role?
Yeah,
and when they are, it's usually not too big of a successful film.
Right.
Like,
yeah, because I know Idris Elba's really big on like British television.
Yeah. I mean, and then he was also he was in The Wire, right?
But he was in The Wire too, yeah, as Stringer Bell.
Because I think that's what like brought him over to American audiences. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he did Dark Tower, I know, and then he's been in a couple other films. But yeah, Thor, I guess, all the Thor movies.
Oh yeah,
and stuff.
yeah. But again, not the lead.
Yeah,
he's like a background.
I don't know.
Same with Charlize Theron. Even like, there's times where she is the main lead.
Yeah,
but
Aeon Flux is the one that really comes to mind for me.
Yeah, we'll go with that one.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what she puts on the top of her resume is Aeon Flux.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I wrote down everyone throwing up after sleeping.
Yeah,
and then they eat.
Yeah, because I like the way David, he comes up to Shaw and he's like, don't worry, Dr. Shaw, your body's in a state of shock. It's just the sleep sickness or whatever, and then she's fucking puking her guts up. Yeah, it's like that cracked me up.
A lot of sound effects in that section. And then we get introduced to Meredith Vickers, and then
I do want to say too, we get introduced to Milbourne, who's a biologist, and he's like the nerd of the group. You can tell.
Is he the glasses guy?
Yes.
Okay.
And then he gets introduced to Discount Christian Bale, which is he's also known as Fifield, but he.
Oh, I named him Irish.
Yeah, but he basically to me, I thought it was Christian Bale in the movie. Like,
wow, okay.
Yeah, when I first saw the preview, and
okay.
I thought it was Christian Bale because I was like, oh shit, like Christian Bale, like he looks weird. He like shaved his head and stuff. And then when I saw the movie, I was like, dude, that's not Christian Bale. Like, but he just looks so much like him to me that because he reminded me a lot of like have you seen that movie about the dragons with Christian Bale and Woody Harrelson?
What?
Rain of Fire.
What? There's what
You've
movie
never seen
is that?
You've never seen Rain of Fire?
No, I've never even heard that Christian Bale and Woody Allen.
Woody Harrelson.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That's why.
Woody Allen.
Now you understand my shock.
The dragons is you gotta be careful with the fire.
You know, I almost took it down on 4th Street to go get a sandwich with this dragon.
Man, no.
Okay, sorry.
That's really funny.
I totally misheard you on that one.
Yeah,
but still, that's still a weird movie combination.
Yeah, this dude looked like a character from Reign of Fire. He looked like Christian Bale from Reign of Fire with a mohawk, basically.
Okay, so I also nicknamed him Seamus every so often. So if I go back and forth on it, now you know.
Yeah. So then
even though Seamus isn't Irish.
So that leads us to watching a holographic video of Peter Whalen.
I was like, Peter Whalen? Question mark?
Yeah. So
in a video.
So Peter Whalen's a descendant of Charles Bishop Whalen. He's like his grandson, I think.
That makes sense because the first Whalen we saw was in AVP,
right?
And then this is his
grandson.
Asterisk mark. Either son or grandson.
Well, the timeline wouldn't line up if it was his son. It might be his great grandson even because that was in 2000. That was in 2004.
It might be his grandson. It could be his grandson.
Yeah. So if he had a son, because I think Bishop was like 60 in the AVP, he was like 50, 60 in AVP. So his son probably was in his I would guess maybe at the latest, maybe the 40s. Early 40s, because that would be Bishop would be about 20 something.
Okay.
So it might be his great grandson.
All right.
It's probably about 3 or 4 generations removed. Either way, he's related to Charles Bishop Whalen of ABP. He's part of the Whalen Corporation and stuff like that. But actually, it could be his grandson because I forgot he's old. When we see him, he's super
in the video.
Old. like in the
video we
right.
see him.
Well, no, that's what I mean. Like, yeah, because when you see him, because I was gonna make a remark about it's like the worst old man makeup ever because he's played by Guy Pearce.
Yeah, it was
And
really weird why they just didn't get an older person.
exactly. Why wouldn't you just cast an old man?
Yeah, unless you planned on like showing him young,
Which
and then
they technically do because there's a lot of deleted scenes from this movie. There's no director's cut, and I was looking for a director's cut, and Ridley Scott refuses to release one, and there is a deleted scene of him like younger talking about the company and stuff. So that's the only scene of him young, and it's the only scene not in the movie of Guy Pearce not in old makeup or whatever, you know. So it doesn't make any sense.
we did get a little bit of a spiteful shot at the at David here though from Waylon. He goes,
yeah,
David is a robot and has no soul.
yeah.
And I was like, damn! Like, and then you could kind of see that David kind of took that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, huh.
He doesn't feel, but he kind of took that personally.
Yeah,
you
he
know?
definitely looked like he got that. And then Mr. Whalen deteriorates into his,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. And then I wrote hologram Rubik's Cube projector.
Yeah.
Gets put onto the floor, and then they pretty much show like all the planets and galaxies and inner
yeah.
galaxies.
The scientists are coming. He brought the
yeah, he
scientists
brought
up
Elizabeth
to,
and
never had to follow a ghost.
who was the
before.
other person?
That's Holloway.
Did you? Okay, so I thought someone referred to him as John, and then I thought someone referred to him as a totally different name.
No.
So what the hell is his name?
His name was
Because I wrote. I mean, I can look it up honestly,
it.
but anyway, yeah. Go on.
It
Go on.
was something Holloway. I can't. I wrote it. It was. Damn it.
Well, either way, like Charlie. That was the other one.
Yeah, so it was Charlie Holloway and then Rebecca Shaw, I believe.
Yes.
And yeah,
Elizabeth Shaw.
Oh, Elizabeth. Sorry. So Shaw and Holloway come up like he goes away or whatever, and they start explaining stuff.
Yeah, and then he says that line, "I've never followed the ghost before."
Yeah, I just thought that was a funny quote.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were saying about the planets and the star maps.
Yeah, so they're pretty much looking for a new planet for human survival. So apparently we've almost fucked up everything down on Earth, and they're pretty much trying to find another place. And apparently, if it's 2893, I guess Elon Musk's trick to go to Mars didn't work out so well either.
Well, they're basing this off the star maps. Like they're trying to find the planet that.
And not just regular star maps, they're basing it off of cave drawing star maps.
Right.
That have apparently matched from like ancient Egypt, Mayan, all this other stuff.
Yeah, there's like Sumerian, Mayan, Egyptian, and then a couple others, and they all have the same exact big figure pointing to the stars. They mapped out the stars, and it's in a constellation that is like light years away from Earth that you wouldn't even know is there unless something told you it was there. They found basically like a planet and a star system and all this kind of stuff. So that's where they're heading because essentially Shaw and Holloway named them the engineers. Like that they.
Yeah, I wrote engineers are the name of the white big people.
Yeah, and so that's the name that they gave their alien species, and they're essentially looking for the planet that they came from or whatever to try to live on it, I guess.
They also, so a little bit after that, like Elizabeth and Charlie get invited to Vickers' room, and then she mentions that $1 trillion funded this trip. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money to be just saying that it funded the trip. And so, yeah, as they're like flying and whatever, there's like a notification or something that they've like landed or whatever. Or they're about to land. They're like, everyone better buckle up or whatever.
I just want to point out that Shaw points out there's a med pod. So Vickers.
Oh yes.
Vickers
just a little bit. So back into that scene where the $1 trillion thing is mentioned.
Yeah, Vickers lives on a lifeboat because they get on her thing or whatever, and then David mentions something about having its own life support systems or whatever, and so Holloway, makes a snide remark. Oh, so it's a lifeboat, and she's like, yeah, what's wrong with that? But Shaw notices a med pod, and she's just like starts messing with it or whatever, and then Vickers is like, get away from that, don't touch it. So it's just kind of suspicious.
Yeah, there's something going on. Essentially, the med pod can, do surgery and whatnot.
Right.
And so anyway, then I guess Captain calls everyone back up, And
Yes.
I can't remember. I didn't write this part down. I have $1 trillion, and then it went right up to they start to see something on the planet, and they land.
Yeah, because Holloway and David, they argue first because, God, what did they argue about? I think they argued about just basically like, what was it? I think it was something about him being made by people or something. And he's like, oh, like wouldn't you be upset if like your creators said they could just make you just because they could? And Holloway like kind of scoffs at him or whatever, and he's just like, yeah, whatever, dude.
Oh yeah,
You're still
because
just a
David
robot.
says, like, why did you create me? And he's
Yeah.
like, well, it's because we could. And then he said, well, what would you think of blah 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 and this and that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and then they all start coming in for a landing onto the planet, and then
Sorry,
you
wait.
got one more thing.
One more thing. Yeah,
Okay.
because there was oh no, never mind. That's later. That's
Okay,
later.
so
Sorry.
they're flying in,
I got ahead.
and they're like there's a storm, and all of a sudden they're trying to fly through, and
Yeah.
which indicates that there's an atmosphere because
Yes.
there's a storm of some sort. There's an atmosphere of some sort.
And it's pretty close to Earth's according to their readings.
Yep, and then
Lots
but a
of
little bit toxic.
Yeah,
a little
lots
bit
of
toxic,
CO2.
Yeah, and then they land, but they find these temples on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
They're just 3 of them. Boom, 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 and
And then Holloway, it's funny because they're all like, how do you know that's not like artificial or whatever? And he's like, God doesn't make things in straight lines because they're all lined up like perfectly along inside this like
Who said
valley.
that?
Holloway said it after he spotted it because he's like over there, right over there, and they're like, "How do you know it's over there?" And he's like, "God doesn't build things in straight lines." I thought that was pretty funny.
And so as they're all getting ready to leave, first off, the ship landing was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Definitely still
the
CGI.
the
though.
visuals in this movie I think are pretty good.
It did rely a lot on CG though, so I'm not because I'm definitely more of a fan of practical effects. So but still, it was pretty well done.
Like,
though.
yeah,
It's
as
pretty
far
well
as the spaceships are concerned and stuff, I'm pretty okay with those being CGI, just simply for the fact that it's hard to pull that off with like miniatures and stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like the aliens and stuff, I definitely have more discrepancies that I look for.
So they land and they all start trying to get off the ship because they're gonna go check it out. And then they see somebody. What was the Scottish guy's name?
Oh, I just call him Discount Bale.
Discount Bale.
Because I put the whole crew that's getting ready to leave. It was Holloway, Shaw, David, Discount Bale, biologist, lady that we never even got introduced to, and a
There's a lady?
Yeah. She's yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't remember the lady?
No, I don't remember
Yeah, dude,
any other person on that ship that was a woman.
I can't even remember what movie she's been in, but
here's the other thing.
recognize
There
her.
are 17 people on that ship, but we only get to see like 5.
Well, yeah, we mostly stick with the main crew because a lot of the security crew and a lot of the ship crew are all still on the ship when they go to visit the
but I mean
the temple or whatever.
Yeah, we'll get into that later.
Yeah, because we'll see a few more later because we see a couple red shirts go with them. There's like there's like 2 or 3 of the security crew that tag along with them when they go because they have those 3 vehicles and most of the main group are in the big truck, and then there's like 2 people driving those little scooter things.
Yeah, but before that, there's a line that says Elizabeth says because she sees somebody that has like a flamethrower or something like that, and he's like, and then Elizabeth goes, "This is a scientific experiment."
Oh,
expedition.
yeah, that was one of the security
And
guys.
then she goes, like, because she's saying, like, "Why are you bringing the gun?"
Yeah.
And then the flamethrower guy, he goes, "Okay, well, good luck with that," because like she was saying that I'm not bringing a gun, and he's like, "All right, well, fine then."
Yeah,
But
he was one of the red shirts that went with them, and then David and Holloway get into a little tiff again, and he's like, "Why are you wearing?" Because they're all putting on spacesuits because they can't breathe outside, and he's like, "Why are you wearing the spacesuit?" And he's like, "Your people have like difficulty adjusting to my kind because we make you nervous since we don't breathe and all this and that, and so we do this to make you more comfortable." And then he's like, "Oh man, they're making you guys pretty close, huh?" And then David, he's like, "Not too close, I hope," which that made me laugh out loud because it's like, damn man, that android dude, he's
a sassy one.
Yeah, man, he's got some burns for Holloway when he gets.
But yeah, so we get to see a truck and 2 dune buggies just drive off into the sunset there over towards the expedition. But then they notice that because they do some scans and they notice that the temple is hollow. So there's some,
there's
there's
these
indication.
are some of the people on the ship, right?
Yeah. What?
These are the people on the ship, like that are getting the scan.
Oh yes,
Because
yes.
is this after they've entered or
This is
before?
before they've
Okay,
entered.
that's what I thought. Yeah.
So then we get to see GoPro first person view,
Yes.
which I would have hoped that they. Well, I mean, I guess they did kind of half and half, but it's okay. Then they mention Discount Bale goes like release the pups,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
was like, these are pretty cool. He never gets those back, but because they just keep searching for like
Yeah.
days on end. But it's a drone sensor mapping.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Like they just
And
follow through the tunnels and essentially are building this 3D model for the what do you call it? The ship to recognize for the, Prometheus to generate this map for this
yeah, it's like a
temple.
3D mapping system.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty cool.
I love how he calls them pups because as they go through, they bark like dogs and they whine when they
Yeah,
hit
if
a
they
dead
can't
end
go.
or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I love that.
Then they go a little bit deeper into the tunnel or in the tomb, and they notice that the air levels are cleaner than
Yes.
Earth's on the inside of the tomb, not the outside.
Yeah, there's
And
something creating an atmosphere, I think, is what Shaw says or something.
Yeah, and then they mention that it's -12 in here, and then
The
someone
late-
asks,
okay.
goes, "Why is the water not frozen?" I remember the lady now.
Yes,
There's another.
she's the one
she's
who
like
says that.
a little bit has a Scottish accent or
Yeah,
Irish accent.
and
yeah.
you've seen her in movies, I'm sure, but like I can never remember what movie she's been in. I just recognize her face.
Got it.
But yeah, I just called her lady because I never even got her name.
But then I don't know why I'm yawning. Then David starts searching. He's like messing with these like little pixel stuff, and then we get this AR video log of
Yes.
for microbytes, which is pretty cool because then you just see this like 3D running giant man of some sort of giant figure running through with the crew, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
And then something happens. so.
it's like several giant, and I mean you're obviously to assume they're engineers, like because based on the beginning and where you're heading, but you don't know exactly, of course, it's not explicit, but you would assume they're engineers and they're running through this tunnel and they're all in like these weird suits and stuff and then you see one lagging behind. There's always one lagging behind, and he's
Yeah.
all looking behind him like, "Oh God, what are
Yeah, they clearly
they're-
are being chased by
yes.
something, and then they follow where the body is, and they find the body,
Yeah,
and it's decapitated. But then there's a line from Discount Bale here, and he goes, because Elizabeth is like, "We need to see what's on the other side of this door," and he's like, "I'm just a geologist. Ain't nothing to contribute in the giant body area."
Yeah.
and I was like, "That was pretty good." So.
Yeah, because Shaw, like when they watch the recording, basically they see the guy who's trailing behind, like he falls and the door like that he trips under comes down and it cuts his head off. So they find the body and date it, and it's like 2,000 years old. And then David manages to open the door because he's able to read their language after studying like every single human language for the last 2 years on their trip. He essentially puts it together that like you can put all the languages together and make their language, I'm assuming is what he's doing. And he's able to decipher their language. So he's able to open doors, start recordings and things around these tunnels. And when they open this door, they discover this room that's kind of vacuum sealed initially. And it's like temperature controlled, I guess, for lack of a better term. And inside this room, they find a bunch of these like vase things.
Yeah, I wrote
or-
lots of jars.
I put vials. That was the term I tended to use. And then they start oozing a little bit of black goo. As
So
they
my
condensate.
theory of this, yeah, because condensation, I think is because of the air that they were breathing was causing the reaction, and that's why the engineers were wearing masks to not activate it because they would have been breathing the same air.
Yeah, because as soon as they entered the room and started tinkering around with stuff, and then at some point Shaw says like the atmosphere in here has been compromised. So them breathing the air, the door being open and allowing outside air coming in, the temperature changing, just all of it like fucked that whole room up because it was just a preserved case essentially.
Well, he also mentions that I think the other lady, she mentions that the art on the wall looks cool, and then all of a sudden, when shit starts to go sideways, the art on the wall is moving.
Yeah, it's
because
like starts
I wrote
changing and
worms
stuff.
in the dirt.
Yes, so
Yeah.
I mentioned that too. You see worms in the dirt, And then
living black slime.
And then Holloway looks at a mural at the end of the room. There's like a crystal like thing in this little, I don't know, it's like a podium or something. But then he looks at this mural at the end of the room, and it kind of looks like something that we might see later on in the future series. It looks very similar. And I actually have a theory about well, I guess I'll just say
Yeah, we've already seen a xenomorph, so we already know what they look like.
Yeah, I always forget that we've seen AVP first. So
yeah.
So I have a theory about the xenomorphs that we can talk about at the end of the whole thing.
Okay.
How to connect AVP a little bit better to this, because I don't want it to be like retconned continuity-wise.
Yeah. David does mention that the slime is living, or he uses a different term for it, but he says that it's living slime kind of thing. And then Elizabeth and the other girl start to put the head in the bag.
Yeah.
And they're like, because they get a thing from Captain saying that there's a storm coming.
Yes.
And it has silicon in it.
Yeah.
And so that means it's like it's essentially glass.
Yeah.
That's just going to rip apart people. So they have to, it's a race against time at this point.
Yeah, they got to get
back.
going. And like, I think too, like, not only is that's like coincidentally happening at the same time that like they're realizing the room is changing, so they're like, fuck, we got to get that head in the bag and we got to get it back, and then there's a storm coming too, so it's like everything's decomposing and everything's melting all over the ground. David takes a vial of the black goo, he scoops it up before they leave.
Yeah.
And then some of the black goo's oozing all over the ground. You see the worms floating around in it.
Yeah, a little soupy worm mixture.
When we forgot to mention too, when you were talking about the body thing with Christian Bale, with Discount Bale.
Do you want to know his name?
Fifield, I know his name. Fifield, Milbourne.
Milbourne, yes.
Those two took off before they entered.
Yeah,
the room
when he made the joke of the body is out of my big bodies are out of my jurisdiction or whatever.
Yeah.
Then those two separated from the group, which obviously we just saw that when one person was separated from the group, shit went sideways for them. So how come you think that if you two leave?
And what I think is funny is this is how they got into the ship. They walked in, they took a left, then they like followed that path down for a little while because that was where the recording was, and then I think they took a right, and then that was it. Like they literally went 3 directions, but for some reason, Fifield and Milbourne are somewhere you don't.
Not to also mention, they have tracking for that location. The pups have already been that way.
Exactly. He's the one with like the mapping stuff or whatever, and so like essentially, I guess where I was getting at with that is like they're trying to get out of this place and they escape, and then the whole crew gets back in their vehicles and they start driving back toward the ship. Milbourne and Fifield are nowhere to be found. Like they're just, you assume I guess they went back to ship, but well, I guess. Like they do say when they get out there that some of the vehicles were gone, so they were like, "Oh, I guess they did go back to the ship." Or whatever.
That's what I was like.
So,
why are some of the? But then I guess some of the rest of the crew could have left already.
Yeah,
I don't know. But then obviously the storm's hitting real hard, and then they get back to the ship, and then they try to get in the ship. But the head rolls away, so Elizabeth goes after it, and then she blows away like a napkin in the wind.
Yeah,
and then
Holloway tries
to save her and can't do it, and so then David comes out of there with him rappelling down.
That part
and
was
he
so
just
funny.
He like zooms around.
Yeah,
it was pretty funny.
And then when he attaches to him and he like starts repelling or like pulling them back to the ship, like they're just floating in the air, just like on a line, so it looks like they're being like fished out of the air.
It looks pretty funny. So they try to do some experiments on the head, and they're testing it, and then they're like, okay, Elizabeth has this genius idea to let's shock the nerves to think that it's working again.
Yeah.
And so they're like, all right, cool. So the other girl stabs it right into the side of the head.
Yeah.
And then they start feeding electrons through the head. And then what happens, Josh?
Well, essentially, because the head was in a helmet, so they take the helmet off. And there's like this stuff growing on the top of the head, like it's just like black goo, and that's essentially what makes them want to see if they can electrify it to make it think it's alive, because they think it's changing. So when they start electrifying it, they increase it little by little, and the black goo stuff starts spreading. and then it starts taking over, and then they try to turn it down, but it thinks it's alive, I guess. So then it's spreading, and then the eyes open up, and it's making all these weird like mouth motions and stuff. And they're like, conceal it, like put it in something. And so they move it back into this little tank, and it freaks out, and then it just explodes into pieces.
Yeah, they said it smelled too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot.
The smell. Yeah, I said they shocking the nerves back to life in the head, but they microwave it instead.
Yeah.
So.
And then we see a neural visor. I did write it down. So then we see Holloway is a big baby about it because he's sitting over in the corner drinking a bottle of like scotch or vodka or something, and you can tell he's pissed off.
Why was he mad?
So
I just never got why he was such a big puss about it.
We do kind of find out in like a couple scenes from now. So I guess I can.
Okay, we'll go into a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah, and so essentially he storms out of the room, and Shaw's like wondering like what the fuck's wrong with him, and then it cuts to David talking, and
he has Google glasses on.
Yeah. So
and he's talking with somebody.
Yeah,
someone,
and he keeps saying "sir."
It's a guy.
So we're like, oh, who's he talking to? And he's standing next to it looks like one of those hypersleep chambers, but we don't know who's in it. Because we clearly know that he's talking to somebody who's sleeping because of what we've seen with him and Shaw. Like, he's able to read their dreams or whatever.
Yes. David did keep a jar, but he kept it in the fridge, apparently.
Yeah.
Because that's where you keep those living jars are.
Yeah.
And so while that's happening, Elizabeth and the other girl are running tests and whatnot, and they find out that the DNA matched human exactly.
Yes.
Bit by bit, everything was the exact same.
Yes, and so this confirms the beginning of the movie where essentially when that engineer drank that goo and fell into the water, that was primitive Earth and that his DNA seeded life on Earth.
Yeah, pretty much it started the evolution theory. So.
Yeah, and then David experimenting with the goo says one of the trailer quotes. I know it was in the trailer, but one of the big quotes of the movie because he's got this little black goo dot on his finger.
Oh yeah,
and I like the way he has the whale emblem on his fingerprint. It's like the logo.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Oh yeah, it's really cool.
And
he says, "Big things have small beginnings."
Yeah, I wrote David has weird popsicle full of black goo.
Yeah,
so
it is kind
of like a pickle popsicle.
Yeah, it was like weird because he pulled it. It was like goo in a jar in slime in a vial.
That's frozen.
Yeah,
it was really weird.
Really weird how he kept it.
And then I wrote ball bearing pool makes pool. I wrote ball bearing pool makes pool look futuristic.
Yes, yeah.
Because I'm like, how the hell do you even play that? There's not even a point to even play that.
There's
just
no numbers.
It's just literally knocking pinball balls around.
Yeah, yeah. It was weird. It did have the diamond, so it might not be like traditional billiards.
It's futuristic pool.
Yeah, it might be.
The game of pool has evolutionized itself 80 years from now.
Yeah,
so.
It's weird. But this is where we find out why Holloway's mad. So Holloway is talking to David, and David's like, what the fuck's your problem? You know, like in lack of android words.
Yeah.
And so Holloway's like basically like, oh, it was all a lie. Like, they're not gods. They're mortal like we are. They can die. They're just people, you know, and they just created us for whatever reason. And I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to ask him why, but there's none of them left. They're all dead. And so David's like, oh, well, like, quit being a baby, you know? And he's like, this is like basically essentially like a once in a lifetime kind of thing. You know, and why you basically being like a pussy about it. And then so David has this goo on his finger the entire time, right? He's got this
and if you notice, his hand is in a particular motion, just enough for his index finger to be extended, and then he does the boop, boop.
Yeah, and this part,
I'm like, what kind of freaking
This part of the movie pisses me off because so essentially he's like he kind of bucks up Holloway enough to make Holloway not pouty anymore. He gives Holloway a drink and he's like, oh, like this is at least worth drinking to. But as he hands Holloway the drink, he dips his finger in it with the black goo and then takes his finger out clearly in front of Holloway. Like, how did he not see him?
Yeah, because doesn't he like look at him and then he hands him the drink?
Yes, he
and
holds
then
the drink out, puts his finger in, takes his finger out. Well, his finger might be in it already, but it's so obvious when he takes his finger out, and then Holloway just takes it and gulps it down, and it's like, why did you take that? Like, you can see he had his finger in it, and regardless of whether or not he's an android, I would have questioned that.
Yeah, there was been a lot of other things going on there.
Yeah, so Holloway gets tricked into drinking a little tiny, like, just rain droplet size of black goo.
Yeah, which is apparently just enough. So yeah, then we cut back to our two band of misfits that are about to probably not make it out of here. And they find a pile of dead bodies of all of these. Yeah. What do they call them again? Engineers. They're all just a big pile of engineers.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
And
really weird.
They did, and then Milbourne did point out that one of them's chest was caved outward. Yeah, there was one laying like right in front of the pile, and he's like, it's like look at all these bodies. This one, like the chest is just burst outward. It's strange, and so he did make a note of that.
We cut back to the ship, and Captain is playing "Oh Come Let Us Adore Him" on the accordion. I don't know the full title of that song. Maybe that is, but it's like a little bit of a hymn. And so because they're calling for the captain to get up, and so he gets up because it's apparently Christmas when they wake up, which I didn't know that was like because they do say the date, but I forgot to write day down. I just wrote the year down.
Yeah, because I guess we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So then he goes. Like they go, what's going on over there? Blah blah blah, and this and that. And he goes, well, there's like a ping, a glitch, maybe a life form. And then the other guys go, ping, glitch, life form. What the fuck?
Yeah, they're just, what the fuck does it mean a ping? A glitch? What?
And then the captain goes, well, it's gone now. And he's like, what does that even mean?
I love how vague the captain is in this movie, because if he would have just explained himself a little bit more clearly, I have a feeling a couple people wouldn't have died.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. And he goes, oh, wait, never mind. That's a little bit later down.
Yeah, the ping happened about a click to the west. And so I think it was Milbourne was like, well, he said it was to the west, so do you want to head to the west? And then I think Discount Bale was like, fuck that, I'm going east. And then they start walking east.
And then we get cut back to, this is when Elizabeth and what's-his-face are talking. Yeah. And he says there's nothing special about the creation of life. And then Elizabeth goes,
anyone can create it. All you need is a dash of DNA and half a brain.
Yeah, and then Elizabeth goes, I can't create life. And then there's this like weird awkward moment because that's obviously enough for, as the character is explaining, she's stillborn. Is that what the term of it is?
No, she's infertile.
Infertile, that's right. What does stillborn mean?
That means when a baby's born dead.
That's right. And then so they have, it was a moment that happened. Anyway, so but anyway, yeah, so she says that she's infertile and that she can't, but she doesn't say it outright because obviously two characters that know that information wouldn't just be outright saying that information.
They're not going to, it's not exposition. Yeah, they already know
which that. I actually very much applaud to the writing on that one because it's making it seem like obviously these characters know each other, so they wouldn't be just blatantly saying that.
Yeah.
And then I wrote John and Elizabeth do the nasty.
Yeah, they essentially Holloway apologizes, and then they celebrate the idea of them finding the engineers and whatnot, and then they make up and fuck.
That's more or less the same what just happened.
And like how you said, like I do enjoy with the writing in this movie. They don't outright tell you a lot of things. You have to infer, like based on the evidence presented to you, and if you pay attention, you can figure the movie out. A lot of people had complaints with this movie, saying it didn't answer enough questions. Yeah, and it's like, well, first of all, it wasn't there to answer questions about previous movies. It was there to start like a whole new series of prequels that were tied into the movies.
Yeah, and then they also, for example, another example of that would be, why does David know how to do all this stuff? Like you explained, and like it shows, he's been studying for 2 years on all languages and whatnot to find out different keys. It's kind of like solving I've been listening to a podcast about the Zodiac, so I'm going to use a reference to that. How they took the Zodiac's like letters, and they tried to find, because you sent letters that had like code in it. So pretty much it's him just deciphering the code based on languages that are on Earth, and he's just solving it all through his computer that's internally on him. But they never say that. And then the captain asks Meredith, "Hey, are you a robot?" And then she goes,
Oh
"My
yeah.
room, 10 minutes. Do you want to set up what happened there?"
Yeah, because like, so basically the captain's chilling playing this accordion, and then she comes in and she says something about the accordion, about it sounding like a dying cat, and then he's like, "This is Steven Still's accordion," and she's like, "Steven Stills, who's that?" And he's like,
Or
"I
am
don't
I supposed to know
like,
who that is? Or
Yeah,
something like that?
yeah, and then essentially, yeah, like he says something about like, "Oh, if you wanted to do it, like you could have just come and asked or said something or whatever. You didn't have to be all like sly and like nonchalant about it." And
And then she says something along the lines of like, "Do you think I traveled 2 years to come to a planet just to have sex with some random guy?"
yeah, like travel away from every single man on Earth.
Yeah, to come have
some
sex with
random.
you. Yeah.
And then that's when he busts. He like, "Hey, I wanted to ask you a question. Are you a robot?" And then yeah, she's like, "My room, 10 minutes." Like,
yeah, I was
and-
like, "Oh
and,
my god!"
And it's great too because then he starts playing the accordion and he's like, "If you can't love," he starts singing the "Love the One You're With" song. I can't remember his like, "If you can't love nobody, love the one you're with." Love the one you're with, because he's playing the accordion while he's doing that.
Then we cut back to our two jokers that are standing on the outside, not on the ship, and I go
Yeah.
#Vape Nation smoking in the helmet.
Oh right, yeah, yeah,
I was like, man, this is vaping before vaping was like a trend.
yeah.
And you just hear this like, hold on, let me see if I can, for audio listeners, let me see if I can do it here.
Yeah, kind of like that.
I can't because I was about to choke on water.
Yeah, it would work really well with like a straw or something. Yeah, Milbourne and yeah,
There you go.
Milbourne and Fifield basically stumble into the room that had all the goo in it, and because they ended up going back the way they came and ended up back
Yeah.
to where they had started essentially.
Well, they're in the room where the head was.
Right.
Is where they are currently at. Yes.
Yeah,
They
like,
never entered the room, so they
No,
don't know what
but-
the room looks
but,
like.
Yeah, they had left. That was where they had left from initially when they found
Yes.
the body, and
Yes.
and they actually went into the room this time.
Which is stupid. Why would you do that? You're trying to find yourself out.
Yeah.
But I guess they can't because the captain already told him find a place that's cozy and
yeah,
snuggle up,
hunker down because
for the night.
stay
yeah.
warm because the storm's not going to pass for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're in the goo room.
I wrote Alien Cobra of Death.
Yeah, dude. So this is why we mentioned those worms before, because so you're not 100% sure what happened, but then all of a sudden you see these things swimming around in the black goo, and it's just this long wormy looking thing, and I guess you assume that this black goo, like, what did it do to these worms, you know? Because yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, it doesn't necessarily outright tell you, but basically you're supposed to assume that this goo like mutated these worms into these creatures or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I wrote because then it attaches its arm. It attaches to the arm of Specs here,
yeah,
and it starts wrapping it around, and then he's like, "Cut it off! It's gonna break my arm!" And then it breaks his arm,
Yeah.
and then they cut it off, and then the acid blood spurts all over Seamus's helmet,
Yep.
and then it melts in and suffocates him. I was like, "That is crazy badass of a kill."
yeah,
and, I was,
and don't forget too, like when his as it started melting, he fell forward into the black goo, and then when he like laid backwards, like it all melted onto his face.
yes.
So, like, yeah, just keep in mind the black goo part because he fell into it. Milbourne didn't fall into the black goo. That worm crawled into his suit and then down his throat.
Yes, it deep throated him, and it was really gross.
Yeah.
I actually said, acid blood burns Seamus helmet, and then deep throats glasses.
Yeah.
There you go. You can put that for a title on your next porn
Yeah.
movie.
It was pretty bad. And I do have an issue with this part of the movie also because Milbourne he was a biologist, so he should be familiar with like life, you know, like animal life. And so he's just all
There
like
is a deleted scene.
yeah, I think I've seen it too cuz he's all like, "Oh, like hold on. Like it's cool. I got it. I'll take care of it." And he's all like, "Come here, baby. Come here." You know, and he's all trying to be
beautiful. You're beautiful.
Yeah, he's all trying to be friendly with an alien creature. It's like, dude,
I'm like, yeah.
don't put your arm out, man. Like, at least put a stick or something. You know?
Because first off, it's obviously looks like a cobra.
Yeah.
So with anything that has teeth like that,
Yeah.
I'm not going near
Yeah.
that.
It's reared up, and then it flares out its little gill flap things or whatever, and then it basically it looks like a snake that's hissing at him. It's like at that point you should have backed off, dude.
Yeah. And then we cut back onto the ship after those two knuckleheads died.
Yes.
And we're back in the room of Elizabeth and Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie. Yeah.
And Charlie gets up after he's been a night of
Yeah.
and he goes over, takes his ring off, for whatever reason. How he has a ring, I don't know. And then he looks up at the mirror and he starts washing his face, and then he notices something in his eye.
Yeah, he ain't feeling so good.
Yeah. You know that there are actual parasites that do that?
Yeah.
That's gross.
Yeah.
It sick me out. I hate things that are like touching eyes and whatnot.
Yeah, there's little worms that live there's like worm parasites that can live all throughout your body, dude. It's disgusting.
Parasites.
Yeah. Sorry, Miss Jen. I got parasites.
It's parasite. Anyway, yeah, one of those things crawls up into is swimming around. There's a few of them swimming around in Charlie's eye. And he decides to keep that a secret, apparently, because he's, I don't know, gonna die.
Yeah, yeah. It is really odd that he didn't tell Shaw right away as opposed to, like, in the future, because it's like if there was something swimming. But who knows? He might have thought he was, like, hallucinating. Maybe he thought he was sleep deprived and he just thought he was seeing things.
Yeah, but would you not? Anyway,
I still would have gotten it checked out.
Yeah. So anyway, Captain says, hey, Shaw, the other guy, you should come down here. We're heading off over back to the tombs to go pick up what's their faces, and they're like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So then they hop back in the trucks, and David's giving some weird looks to old Charlie man over there.
Yeah.
Because he knows.
Yeah,
he's testing.
Yes.
Because essentially Charlie's his experiment.
Right.
He's testing to see what they will do.
It's
to
like
him.
doing a live experiment on the field.
Yeah. So they drive back, and David says, I'm going to go look on my own stuff. Peace out.
Yeah.
And he leaves, and
he's going to go get that ping glitch that they've been talking about for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, because one of the pups has stopped.
Yeah.
And so he goes into this room, and he finds himself in a room way bigger, full of jars. So obviously there's more jars of this stuff in a room that David is now entered in. So
yeah, it's like a cargo hold or whatever.
Yeah, and then he goes into another room and he finds a room of caskets.
Caskets?
I wrote caskets, but it's a room of the sleep chambers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, I thought they were just like the sleep things. Or whatever.
They are. I mean, they eventually out of the 4 of them, 3 of those are caskets because 3 of them didn't make it. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, because
Yannick,
that's right.
Yannick,
yeah,
Yannick or Yannick is.
I think it looked like it was
the captain's name.
It looked like it was German because it was started with a J,
but
it was
American.
Pronounced. Well, yeah, I know, but I'm just saying the name was German. Like it looked like it was German or Swedish or something because it started with a J, but it was pronounced with a Y.
Yeah, the character is American. I don't want people to think that I think that he's American. He's obviously not. Anyway, go on.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm not saying that he was German.
No. I'm just anyway. There are those people. They're like, well, he's not American. So da, da, da.
Oh,
anyway.
Well, either way.
Yeah. And then I said, David pushed squishy buttons.
Yeah.
For some reason, this
I do like
this
their
overly educated like have squishy buttons.
Yeah.
They can just squeeze these little like white ball buttons.
Yeah, they're like it's like they looked like balloons filled with like
it was
yogurt
weird.
Or like
I don't
sand
know
or
why.
something.
I don't know why.
And they make
yeah, they do because essentially David is seeing all of. There's another hologram thing that happens.
Yeah.
That's like indicating like what they were doing. And
David watches history lesson.
Yeah, and they're trying to find a planet of some sort. They don't tell. Like obviously, you can't tell what's going on other than what you were visually seeing. And they indicate that they were trying to search for a planet, and somehow by putting this algorithm in, they find planet Earth is where they were about to go.
Yeah.
And then David starts to put 1 and 1 together and go, wait, so what is this place if they have in that room a whole bunch of these jars? Why were they going to Earth? And you just start figuring it out. If they were essentially going to purge the Earth and start over, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah.
With this new being of creation or whatever. So
Well, kind of, sort of, because they already, like, they were just gonna destroy mankind. Period. Like,
Yeah.
they weren't even gonna. I don't even think they were gonna restart life
until the predators show up again
the
and cause
yeah.
and end it. I don't know.
But yeah, David finds there's an engineer alive in one of the stasis pods in essentially the bridge of the ship, and
I wrote David's got the whole world in his hands.
yeah, because he's holding a little hologram, which is
Yeah.
really weird how he's able to do that.
Yeah, I was like, why can he not touch anything else in this augmented reality?
Yeah,
But he can touch Earth, and then Earth gets pulled away from him for some. I don't know.
and-
It's weird.
yeah, it's really weird. And then all at the same time, while David's doing this, we see that Shaw and group discover Milborn dead on the ground, and he's like half melted and weird. And then the snake thing jumps out of his mouth, and like, it's like a jump scare or whatever. And Lady, she's all like, "Oh God, we gotta go back! Like, we gotta get out of here! Everybody's dead." But they can't find Fifield anywhere. And then the captain's like, "Yeah, dude, we need to go." And then they realize that Holloway is sick because Holloway collapses, and Shaw's like, "Dude, we gotta get him back."
Yeah, because he's like,
fucking-
look at my eyes.
Yeah.
Is there anything wrong with my eyes? And you
Yeah.
can clearly see he's like a messed up mess.
Yeah, he's like there's black veins running through his body. His eyes are bloodshot, and he's like, I'm okay, and clearly he's not okay. So essentially, they're all like, we got to get back to the ship. Got to get back to the ship. And then when they do get back to the ship, Vickers is like communicating with them the entire time over the radio. And then as she leaves the like main area of the ship, she's like, I'm suiting up. And then she goes downstairs, gets in her suit, and comes out with a flamethrower.
Yeah, because she's like, he is not getting
Yeah.
on the ship because they've said that he's sick.
Yes.
And they're like, and so she's like, fuck that. That's
Yeah.
not getting on my ship. And so she pretty much says, like, he's not getting on the ship. You guys can come on here. He cannot. And then he goes, come on, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And then I go, Vickers has a flamethrower to prevent Charlie's sick ass from coming aboard.
Yeah, dude,
and
she
just
just
lights him up.
toasts him like crazy. Because he essentially sacrifices himself.
I think she legitimately had a flamethrower. I think that is all real effect that just happened there.
I think so, yeah.
And that was just a stunt man that just took all that.
It might have been, yeah.
Because it looked like he was on fire.
Yeah.
Like, it very much looked like he was on fire.
And I think it looked like a real flamethrower. I don't think that was digital.
No, it looked real mean. If not, then that was pretty damn good fire effects. So.
Yeah. So Charlie sacrificed himself, and Shaw's on the ground, fucking hysterical, cry your eyes out. Sorry,
I thought you were going into crying.
sorry.
And
That was
she was crying her eyes out.
yeah. That was a surprise yawn that just kind of popped up.
Yeah, and then they go into the infirmary because she's, I guess, passed out for some reason.
Yeah,
and,
they're essentially doing tests on everybody who had left the ship.
yeah,
so
but
that-
she was passed out.
well, she passed out probably because she was hysterical. Like, she probably just passed out.
She was so
Right,
like having
after-
a conniption. That she
Yeah,
just,
like he
blacked
died,
out.
and that was her lover, so she probably just got to the point
so
where she
weird.
just passed out, like, the shock.
Yeah.
So, I mean, dude, she just watched somebody like burn him alive in front of her eyes.
That's pretty true. That was pretty intense.
Either that or David sedated her, one of the two, because they're doing tests on everybody who left the ship to make sure nobody else has it, and of course David knows that nobody else has whatever
Yeah.
it was. But
Because he's a sick little robot.
yeah, and so he's doing, quote unquote, a test on Shaw to make sure that she doesn't have what she's carrying. And then as he's doing the test, he discovers that she's pregnant.
Yep. And not just pregnant, she's 3 months pregnant.
Yes.
And then then David has this weird, like, father-daughter kind of conversation about, have you had sex? Because he
Right,
keeps
yeah.
innuendoing all about it. Have you ever had relations
Yeah.
with Charlie? And
I'm
he's
sorry
like,
to be so what is it, informal, or I'm
Yeah.
sorry to be so. He says something like that.
and then she goes, well, we had sex 10 hours ago. And I'm like,
Yeah.
who the fuck keeps track of that? I'm
And-
like,
and he says something kind of fucked up to Shaw at one point, because so Shaw wears a cross,
Yes.
and I guess, like, and she has some flashbacks through the visor thing, like, about her dad, that you see that David's watching when she's dreaming, and she's dreaming about basically like somebody's at a funeral and she's asking like what happens when people die, where do they go, this and that, and he's explaining like, oh well, we all believe in different things. Some people call it heaven, some people call it paradise. So essentially they have Christian beliefs, they believe in God, right? So then at one point when so this is after Holloway's been dead, they've found dead engineers, this blah blah blah, everybody's dead. And then David leans over to her, puts his hand on her shoulder, and goes, "It must feel like your God has abandoned you." It's like, damn.
No, and then he mentions, he goes, Ebola killed your dad, and then we into it indicating that like Ebola killed her dad and whatever
Yeah, because it was
disease killed. Yeah,
yeah,
and I go,
similar death.
I go, Ebola killed Elizabeth's dad. David brings this up like a dick.
Yeah.
Because, like, really?
Yeah.
Why did you say? Because he's just an asshole at this point.
And she's like, "How did you know that?" And he's like, "Because I watched your dreams." And
yeah,
then
like
she's
a psychopath.
Yeah, she's freaking out, and like right before he had said that, he had resedated her, so she's like half passed out.
Yeah.
And then she basically falls asleep after he leaves her.
And so she passes out, and then the two doctors come back in and smack her awake. But she's playing possum here.
Yes.
And then she wakes up and goes and runs away. I threw my pen. Wakes up and then like heads down because she knows that this thing is in her, but it's not human. Like
Yeah.
she can tell that it's not human.
And she starts to become in pain. Like after she wakes up, and
Yeah,
starts
she's
running,
essentially
she's in pain.
going like, having contractions.
Yeah.
At this moment because it's about to come out.
Yeah.
And so she runs down into Vickers' chamber and sees the medic pod, and she jumps in that thing, and she starts tapping on it. Before she jumps in, she starts tapping on the screen,
Yes.
and the med pod says that it's for male patients only.
Yes.
But then she quickly disregards that, and she's like, fine. And so she knew, because she says, like, essentially the more medical term for C-section.
Yeah, cesarean section.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, she does say that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But and so then she doesn't. Anyway, then she just knows what to do.
Yeah, it won't let her. It's like, oh,
Yeah, it won't let her do the shortcut for C-section, but she just says, okay, well, abdominal, like laser cut, blah
foreign
blah blah.
body.
Yeah, and then gets in and then tries to, and then essentially she's awake. It sprays this thing on her stomach, which obviously doesn't do jack shit because it still laser cuts her open, and she still feels it, so it's not a numbing pain.
No, that was just that's the same stuff that they put on your body before surgery. Now it's just an antibacterial.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's like this alcohol stuff. It's like that. Yeah, it's the brown goo. They put it on the area that they're going to slice open so it doesn't get infected.
Well, it apparently didn't because it gets sliced open in this is probably the most like brutal scene in the whole entire film, because you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, it cuts open her stomach with a laser.
Yeah, and I said Elizabeth does a C-section / abortion type thing to a squid baby.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the hell this thing is. So that's the thing about the xenomorphs. They essentially obtain the living creature's attributes, I guess.
Yeah.
And based on that, it will continue on the lineage to eventually create such an overly powerful, like, alien that it could take over a planet, because they're a hive mind. So if they see something, it's kind of like with Predator. Predator goes, we need to become the top hunters, so they go and kill the top things. And if they can't find it, then they build a better crew, and then they send them back down. Which is what we saw in Predators. So see, it all is full circle. It all kind of connects there. And so in this, I guess the original xenomorph is a worm.
Well, see, well, I have like a bunch of theories about how all this xenomorphs. So
because right now we just saw this squid baby pop out.
But the squid baby came from them having sex, and then they had sex after he got infected with the black goo. So whether or not that was a mutated sperm, whether or not it was one of those worms that was in him.
Weird. So that's what happens when a xenomorph gets into a sperm?
See, well, there's no xenomorph in him, though. That's the thing. Because
but see, my thing is the xenomorph the worm?
No, I see.
Or is the xenomorph what comes out of a human?
A xenomorph is the alien, the black alien looking creature that we've seen.
Yeah. See, what
So
I'm questioning is what is the original form of the xenomorph?
oh, okay. Yeah. See, and that's where, okay. So my theory on that is that the black goo is essentially the xenomorph, like life
So the
itself.
xenomorph is Venom?
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. Like, in a way. Because the xenomorphs that we see in, like, AVP and AVPR and that we'll see in future movies are based off of human anatomy, the way that they get reproduced, right? But this black goo is what essentially would have started the xenomorphs, and this black, like, the black goo part is the part that's like the most unexplained part of this whole movie, so you really got to take it with a grain of salt. I guess apparently, according to the way things have been laid out, the black goo is a bioengineered weapon created by the engineers. But I'm under the assumption that they found the black goo on another planet and used it and manufactured it. So maybe the black goo is initially what xenomorphs spurned from, but the black goo itself is its own entity.
Okay. So the black goo is the original. It's in
Yeah.
this line of xenomorphs.
Right. It's like the catalyst. And then so the black goo got into Holloway. And then when he had sex with Shaw, whatever was either in Holloway or whatever mutated in Holloway gave birth or like got into Shaw, or they merged together and basically created this weird squid baby, which was, according to what I looked up, they called it the trilobite. And so
Whatever the hell it is, freaky as hell.
yeah, and then later on, we'll see some more stuff, but we'll get into that,
Yeah. So
God, why does
the
it always
the thing
reset?
shoots her full of staples. It just like after it's cut out, it's like wiggling out in front of her, and she's waiting to get like out of there because it has to cinch her all back up again.
Yes.
So it literally just goes, and it
I-
just like shoves staples right into her stomach.
I think future underwear looks weird because it looks like she was just wrapped in gauze.
Well,
know?
she's also being prepped for surgery too.
Well, no, but she was wearing like the underwear that they wear when they wake up.
The future underwear.
Yeah, like it's the same underwear that they were wearing in the sleep pods or whatever. But it just looks like gauze. Like it doesn't look like underwear.
Yeah.
Like
And
cotton.
so a little bit after that, Captain starts getting some readings on the main deck, and it's saying that Fifield is right out in front of the ship.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?" And so then the rest of the red shirts are down there, and they're going. Obviously, the dude's in like this crab-like state. If I ever saw a human being with their legs over their shoulders
Yeah.
from behind, I'd be like, "Yeah, let's just reel this thing back up."
Yeah,
Yeah, let's not let him in.
he was like looking at it like, oh, this is normal.
Yeah,
Like,
and so he's a mutated monster, and he skull bashes a dude.
yeah.
He literally just like crushes the guy's face, and then literally the only way to defeat him is they set him on fire, they run him over, then set him more on fire and kill him.
and shoot him with that other gun.
yeah,
too.
it's literally just overly exaggerated
So
so that he can kill off red shirts essentially.
yeah, Fifield kills like 5 people in this scene, and it's funny too because like originally, so Fifield in this scene still looks somewhat human, but he's like mutated and
Yeah,
weird.
he's like a zombie. He's like a
Yeah.
Resident Evil zombie.
Yeah, he's got like a big bulbous head, and he's like his arms are all fucked up and weird looking.
So I
But-
was wondering, why did Charlie not turn into that? Oh, because he lit him on fire. So he died before.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I think maybe it was maybe it was the amount of goo because Fifield fell into a puddle of it and like was just doused in goo.
That's true.
Whereas Charlie just had that little bit put inside of him. And then, two, originally in the movie, they changed the scene. So Fifield didn't look so human originally. They actually had it where his head was more shaped like a xenomorph head. Like it was longer in the back and his eyes were like glossed over with like white or something, and he had sharper teeth. But then when they saw it, or Ridley Scott maybe, I think specifically, I think when he saw it, he was like, no, this is like
Too on the nose.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so I think he was like, we need to change that. So then they just made him look like this weird Resident Evil villain instead. So that's one of the alternate scenes that you can watch the DVD or whatever, where it's like, oh, we changed this part, and then that's the reason why he's like supposed to be so strong, because he was like part xenomorph, I guess.
Yeah. And then and why he can hop.
Yeah.
He jump
Yeah,
all
he's
over the
like
place.
climbing all over things and stuff. And
So Elizabeth starts running into different doors trying to find I don't know what she's trying to do.
yeah, she's
And,
just stumbling about.
Yeah, and then she, in a daze of pain and agony,
Yeah,
she drops
and
into
morphine.
this random. Yeah, she drops it. I don't think she gets pumped with more. She does it.
Yeah,
okay.
when she's doing the surgery, she like hits one in her
Oh,
leg,
that's right,
hits one in her stomach, and then as she's leaving, I think she pumps another one into her arm or something.
Got it. Yeah,
she's very sedated.
So she's like stumbling around high as hell, and then falls into a room and sees David washing the feet of somebody.
Yeah, somebody that we kind of know, sort
Yeah.
of, that we saw in a hologram, who's not really dead.
Yeah.
Ta-da! It's Peter Whalen.
Yeah.
It turns out he survived.
He's
and
alive. He
was-
traveled with us.
Yeah, he was the one that was sleeping in that chamber.
Yeah, within his chamber door.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty much Whalen says, yeah, I wanted to see it for myself, and if you had a chance to blah, 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 and this and that, suck a dick kind of thing.
Yeah, because he's like, she's like, why you want to be here? And he's like, well, I don't want to die. Like,
Yeah.
that's why I'm here.
I'm trying to figure out if they found a way of surviving for eons kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, clearly not, because they all died.
Yeah. He doesn't realize that they're as mortal as he is.
And then, so they all start saying, well, you can come with me if you want, because they find out that there's a ship inside the facility.
Yeah.
And that's where David was in.
yes.
He found out it's a ship.
Yeah,
And
the sleeping engineer's like essentially at the bridge.
Yeah, and so Waylon's saying like, we're gonna go wake him up and blah blah blah. And so they say, like, he says to Elizabeth, like, you can come or not, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so she's like, well, I'm gonna come. And then she's waiting in her room and she's zipping up her thing in pain, because she literally just gave birth like half a minute ago. And Captain walks in and he's like, says something that this isn't their home; it's a military base.
Yeah.
And that they aren't stupid enough to build it on their front doorstep. And I was like, that's totally right. That didn't even know why I didn't think of that. It like is obviously, why are there three random buildings just out here in the middle of nowhere? Is because that's where you would put a military base. You would not put a military base, obviously. Like,
it was just an installation. Like,
you would cordon it off,
spot.
and you would allow them to do the experiments that are dangerous in this designated area.
Yeah.
Like, if we were ever testing nukes, we would be putting it in a designated area so that it wouldn't harm like our citizens.
Yeah.
So we don't even know where these things came from. As far as we know, this is just their testing planet.
Right, exactly.
So,
that's essentially when you find out, like, oh, this is not the engineer's home planet. Like, shit.
Yeah. So, and then Vickers starts weirdly doing
this was clunky exposition right
a
here.
hand hold, like about to kiss Waylon's hand because of I don't know what reason.
Yeah.
And then Vickers says like something, and then she goes, da 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 da, father. And then I'm like, oh my god, that's such a horrible way.
Yeah.
That's such a horrible way to explain that.
They were the only two people in the room, so this is an example of what not to do. Like, the Shaw Holloway scene was perfect because she's explained exactly what she needed to explain with a simple sentence that they both understood. Whereas in this one, Vickers is all like, oh, yada, 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 father. And it's like, he knows he's your father.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to say that.
You don't need to be a sassy little bitch about it.
Yeah, like, it would have been much better if, as she was leaving the room, if she would have said something like,
But I also wrote this down. Vickers is the daughter of Whalen, but she looks way younger.
Yeah.
I'm like, when did he have you? Like, when he was in his, like, 80s?
Yeah, I'm curious if she's like an artificially inseminated baby, maybe, like, or maybe he's got a mistress of some sort,
baby.
or it might even be possible that that maybe he was supposed to die like years ago, like 30 or 40 years ago, and he's been in a cryostasis this entire time, because we'll come to find out that can happen. Like,
yeah, but it's just weird that, like, if she said granddaughter, like if she said grandpa, then I would have been like, all right, I'm willing to accept that.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, but You're really only saying fathers so that you can you can tell me that you were the next in line, but because this dude isn't dead yet, you can't be the one in charge of
Right.
Waylon. It's just weird. And why does she have the last name Vickers?
I think she was married.
You do?
I
To who?
I don't know.
She had sex with the captain. Well, then again, I don't know. She's that kind of woman.
I think she. I'm not sure if she mentions it at some point, but I would just assume that she's married.
Oh,
and
by
took
the way,
last name of someone else.
this is where we find there's a ship in the tomb. When they go, oh yeah, that thing that David found is a ship.
Oh,
and blah blah blah. Because
yeah.
it shows up on the little radar thing. Anyway,
I thought this was pretty funny. So as they are getting like the crew's starting to get together, right? And then Shaw's finishing up the touches on her suit. She's like getting ready to put her helmet on and stuff. And then as David comes by, he's like, "Oh, you've made it. I didn't think you had it in you." Oh, poor choice of words.
yeah, that was pretty good.
Like,
That was pretty good.
I cracked up at that. Like,
Yeah.
and she just gives him this fucking look, like, "Shut the fuck up."
I know what you did.
Yeah, exactly.
But she tells
So-
nobody because obviously everyone
Yeah.
knows what he did.
Yeah, and nobody, and this is a weird part too. Like now that you just said that, because nobody, like, she stumbles into that room with Peter Whalen and all them, bloodied and gross, and her stomach stapled together. Nobody says anything about it. Nobody asks her what just happened. She doesn't say anything about this tentacle baby. Like, nobody mentions anything about the med pod. It's never brought up again.
Yep.
Like,
Well,
nobody,
it's brought up again. But
yeah, none of the
not in
characters
character.
bring it up.
Yeah, no.
like like none of the characters from the ship say anything about the med pod at all.
Yeah, but David knows that it got taken out of her. That's the weird thing. Because he makes the joke.
Right.
So then why didn't he take any care of that little squid baby?
Yeah, he didn't. He
It's
didn't
so
go
weird.
back for it. He
Yeah.
didn't mention anything to it about, or didn't mention anything about it to anybody else. It was weird, but yeah, Shaw, Whalen, David, Lady, and Red Shirts.
They all go into the tomb and they start trying to figure out where they were going. And David goes as if he's the kid that invited the whole town to come over and play his PlayStation,
Yeah.
runs over to the computer, jumps behind the table, and goes, oh yeah, they were on their way to heading to Earth. And they're like, why are they going to Earth?
Yeah.
And then David says, sometimes to create, one must destroy.
Yeah.
So I was
So
like, oh man, damn.
yeah, and so that's like the part in the movie essentially where we find out, like, oh, they were going to Earth to eradicate humans.
Yeah, and then David wakes up the engineer for whatever the fuck reason.
Oh, can I say something? I forgot to mention this when we were talking about him seeing the history lesson part with like the planet, and also too when he's in this part too. They play a flute to get their computer
I thought
started.
I wrote that down, but I guess I didn't write it down.
Yeah, because David plays a flute to start the computer this time, but when he,
Oh yeah,
when he
I said
watched it
engineers
before-
play Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, it's like do 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 do, and
Yeah.
then the computer starts up. So it's like, so this advanced civilization starts machines with music and has like squishy buttons.
Yeah, they essentially are a giant planet full of toddlers.
That's what I was. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, dude. It's just a planet full of because they even like kind of look like big, giant, ripped babies. like with the way their heads look and stuff.
Okay.
Like, their faces, they look so like youthful. You know?
Yeah, no, it's a youthful.
Yeah, like
Giant babies.
well, because you know how like babies, like when they stumble around when they first learn how to walk, and they're all like they kind of look like.
I guess
just
the only
out of
time we've ever
proportion.
seen these things walk around are stumbling about.
Yeah,
Whether
because
that be in an anger state or whether
Yeah.
that be dying.
because I mean, I guess we're about to come up to it, right? Because they basically revive the engineer. They like David wakes him up and he gets out of the chamber and immediately falls forward and nearly knocks Peter Wayland over. And
Yeah.
then he kind of gets up and goes, "Oh," like
yeah,
they all
and then
do.
they start.
Like they really like going, "Oh."
they start talking. David
Yeah.
starts talking to him, and then obviously saying that like kill this dude. And so the engineer beats Waylon over the head with David's head.
Yeah,
he literally
he-
just
he-
goes over.
dude.
Pulls David's head out of his like robotic spine and then just whacks it over the head in the most comedic feeling
Yeah, dude.
over the top of Waylon's head. And I was like, wow, okay, that was
Engineer
short-lived.
kills everybody.
Yeah,
All the red shirts die.
I said David's special effects of ripped head looks pretty good, but has milk blood for some reason.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. The androids and their milk blood, dude. We'll get real heavy into this.
yeah,
in a
in
couple movies.
Alien Isolation, which is on the channel, so go check that out. Christian and I played
Oh.
Alien Isolation.
Oh, and I
There
was-
are androids where they when you hit them over the head with like
Mm-hmm.
a wrench or shoot them, they bleed milk.
Yeah, it gets real. Like Alien, the one with Sigourney Weaver, the very first Alien movie.
That's 2 movies away from us right now.
Yeah, there's some milk blood in that one. Oh my God, there's milk blood. And okay, so like God, I was gonna say. Oh, and I just want to say a quick thing about Alien Isolation. They just released like the full cinematic movie.
Yeah, I saw
on,
IGN.
on IG. Yeah,
did something. I didn't
so-
watch it. I was like, what the hell
yeah,
is this?
I did. It was
So
basically.
it's literally just the cutscenes.
It's all the cutscenes
okay.
kind of merged together into a coherent story.
Oh.
Like I think they cut some stuff out because I don't think it's the whole thing. It's only like an hour and a
to
half
be
long.
a coherent storyline.
Yeah, I think they cut out some of
That's weird. Why
the
would
like
they-
just random cutscenes, but they made it so it seemed.
Yeah, it's weird
But-
that it's exclusively on IGN, and B, that people have been doing this on YouTube with just walkthrough story, like a full. It's like
Mortal Kombat's one. They did that with Mortal Kombat
a lot
9.
of people will go on YouTube and make like Resident Evil 2 the movie,
Right.
and it's literally just all of the cutscenes, or
Yeah.
like Mortal Kombat X the movie, and then
Yeah.
it's just all
with
the
very
cutscenes.
limited gameplay if they need it, like the quick time events
yeah.
and things like that. But yeah, but
It was just weird how they did that, but anyway.
yeah, I'll talk more about the Alien Isolation movie after we get through Alien 1.
Yeah, because it's set after.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure if it's technically canon, but I just kind of want to talk about it a little bit.
Okay. I wrote down engineer's helmet looks kind of cool.
Oh yeah,
I thought the helmet looks cooler than the thing itself.
it looks kind of like an elephant to me, or
yeah, sure.
or like an
like
aardvark.
Elephant Man.
Yeah, yeah, it's like got a weird trunk breathing apparatus
Yeah, I don't know,
thing
it's-
to it.
Going on with it
But Shaw escapes from all the bloodbath. Like the
for
engineer.
some reason.
Yeah,
The C-sectioned woman
yeah. What's really okay?
gets away, running away.
That's another thing that I kind of have an issue with this movie when I think about it is that Shaw's running around a planet after just having her stomach stapled together.
Yeah. So imagine if for guys, imagine your wife or your girlfriend, and girls, imagine you just gave a C-section birth. And then they just have you run a marathon
Yeah.
after that. That's essentially what's happening to Shaw right now.
Yes.
She's just doing that the whole time.
And what's really funny is when she starts running away, the engineer like kind of takes a couple steps towards her and goes, "Not worth it." And then he goes back.
Yeah, he just goes. He's like, she got away.
Yeah, exactly. He's just like,
What's
it's
the
cool."
worst she can do?
Exactly. Yeah. And so,
Which eventually,
yeah, because the engineer hops into his little like a pilot. Okay, so this big seat thing pops up from the center of the room. He hops in the seat, and then it's like the navigation armor comes around his chest and his head and stuff. And essentially, I guess he's getting ready to take off in the ship, and you see the ship rumbling and stuff. And Shaw's running out of the ship, and she's trying to get out. Yeah, and then let's see.
and then Shaw says, because originally they said during that little banter
right.
back and forth with the captain and Shaw before they left, where he says like, "Oh, this is the like." He's just pretty much giving her final words, kind of thing, and he says like, "No matter what, I'm not bringing anything back to Earth."
Yeah, like
And-
if you're on the ship or not, I'm not taking that stuff back with me.
Yeah, so whatever you go out there and go get, I'm not putting it on this ship and taking it back to Earth, because he's pretty much seen all of what has been brought back has been death. And so she goes, "I understand." And so then now fast forward to this part, she goes and yells to the captain, "Do what you need to do. Shoot through this." Like,
Yeah,
you know.
he's getting like there's a ship. It's getting ready to take off.
Yeah, it's going
heading
to
for
Earth.
Earth. You need to do something to stop it because I can't do anything from down here.
Yeah, and so he pretty much goes, "Okay," and then says to Vickers like, "Miss Vickers, you better get back to your, little pod thing, otherwise, you'll be coming along with us."
Yeah.
And so based on that, he looks down to his crew and he's like, "If you guys want to leave too, I'm sure she has room over there." And they go, pretty much like, "We're ride or die" kind of thing.
Yeah, the one guy's like, "No offense, Captain, but you're a shit pilot, and you're gonna need all the help you can get."
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, because
then the other guy
like-
just shakes his head, yes.
Yeah, because the pilot, the two pilots of the ship, like they're like tertiary characters. Like they don't really show up too much, like save for like a couple scenes.
Yeah, they do
Like,
have lines though.
They make a bet of whether or not like why they're there, and
Yeah.
then they talk about Vickers giving them a lap dance at one point, and then essentially like they're just kind of the captain's like right hand men, and but they go down with the ship with him. Essentially, they're just like, yeah, we're not gonna leave you behind. Like we're gonna help you fly the ship.
Yeah, and so Vickers gets on her little escape pod, shoots off, and then she essentially runs to her.
Yeah, they drop the lifeboat.
Yeah.
They shoot that off the ship as well.
And then the rest of the crew stays on and fire bullets right through to knock down the. So they take Prometheus and they shoot it right through the engineer ship.
They kamikaze pilot directly into it.
I wrote crazy cool explosion.
Yeah, which was really cool. It was an awesome scene. Like it really sucks for the pilots and that captain because like they were just like flying a ship, man. They probably weren't expecting any of that shit. And then especially too with the one pilot that you were just talking about that nodded, like he seemed the most disappointed because he was like, dude, I didn't want to die. Like,
yeah. But now I'm gonna be an asshole if I leave.
Exactly. So. Like he just kind of seemed like, man, I just wanted to live some more, But
yeah, and so then we get the infamous running in a straight line.
Prometheus School of Running is what we like to call it.
It is a thing that has been memed out the wazoo about. Talking about essentially the ship is crashing down. It's just a circle.
Yeah, it's like a big donut with a little bit of a bite taken
out of it. So it's just like all you got to do is run to the right or left.
Yes.
And you know what pisses me off even more? Elizabeth literally falls down and rolls 4 times to the left, and she's safe.
Yeah. If they would have ran 10 feet either way, they would have been fine.
Yeah, and so then I wrote ship schmooshes Vickers.
Yeah, because Vickers trips, and then instead of trying to roll away like Shaw did, she just goes no, and then puts her hands up to stop it, and then it just
essentially she just gets squished.
Yeah, so Vickers is dead. So as far as like the Whalen family, Charles Whalen's dead. Peter Whalen's dead, and something Vickers. What's her first name? Meredith Vickers.
Yeah, I think that's her name.
Yeah, and so Vickers is no longer part of the family line. I don't know if she, and it was speculation on my part. I don't know if she got married. I'm assuming she was married. Either that, or maybe she was a daughter out of wedlock.
Meredith. Yeah.
Okay.
Meredith.
Yeah. So essentially, and she talked about previously being in a boardroom with fellow family members. Talking about who's going to be next in line to take over the company once Peter dies. So she's not the only family member that's part of the company. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. And so then Elizabeth's still literally on the brink of death.
This part
the
pisses
thing
me
says
off.
Your suit is,
don't forget how she got to that part. The ship falls down, and she crawls up to a rock, and the ship falls on top of her, but it's just enough space
so that she doesn't die.
She survives, but her helmet gets cracked a little bit.
Yeah, and then
it's ridiculous.
Then she starts getting the notifications of your suit contains 16% oxygen, and then David hasn't showed up yet. He hasn't
talked to her yet.
So he goes. She sees the pod, the lifeboat, and she runs over to it. Elizabeth barely makes it to the lifeboat, and then she just like changes out or whatever, blah blah blah.
Yeah, she pressurizes the ship or whatever so she can take her helmet off and breathe again.
But then she notices that there's something on the ship. She hears something.
Yeah.
In the most like alien way, the lights are flickering off and on. And she hears some...
And she has this really cool looking axe, man.
Yeah,
like,
I said
awesome.
he grabs the axe. And all of a sudden, David shows up onto the comm link and says, like, blah, 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 he's there. He's on his way to you.
Yeah.
And then...
You need to get out.
Yeah, and then as soon as he says that, it goes... unknown life form has entered the da-da-da-da-da. And so then you're like, oh shit. And then immediately as she turns around, she gets grabbed by this like Resident Evil 2 Mr. X tyrant thing and like holds her up. And then I wrote giant squid helps mama and takes down Mr. X engineer.
Yeah, because when she heard the sound, she like creeped up to the med pod bay that she had shut before, right? And so the door was shut, and as she looked into the window, she could see the med pod that she had done the surgery in was open. The squid baby wasn't there anymore. And then all of a sudden, this giant tentacle popped up on the window and freaked her out. So then, like, David talked to her. The engineer shows up. And then as the engineer's choking her out, she goes, "Just die!" Hey! And then hits this button, the door opens, and then this giant fucking squid creature with like 9 tentacles. And yeah, and like I said before, they call it the trilobite, which I don't know how it got that name. But essentially, it's a giant face hugger. That's the best way to describe it. It's like a weird starfish-looking face hugger.
Yeah, starfish is probably the best way, because then
Yeah.
as soon as that happens, the thing latches onto his
Yeah.
face and then just starts like humping it a little bit and then dies.
Yeah, and it's really weird how it does it too, because he's got the initial main tentacles, like there's maybe like 6 to 8 tentacles, and then where its mouth is at, it's got these little suction cup things, and it spits out more tentacles that wrap around the engineer's head, and then it like draws in his head, and then it shoots one more down the middle of its throat.
And then funnels it through.
Yeah,
that-
and then it
that
like
little
wraps
thing.
around him and just kind of all over him.
She does say, "Sorry, Charlie." She can't do it.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. Because she's laying outside on the ground in a suit again. Like she puts on another suit, lays
So that she
outside.
has
yeah,
air.
and she's all like basically just like apologizing to everyone who died.
Yeah, and then David says, "You know, you can come get me. There's another ship."
Yeah, I can fly it.
Yeah, I wrote, they were going to kill us, then they changed their minds, which was, I don't know, kind of an idea, because like I was like, why did they change their minds? Because they were going to, and then they didn't.
Well, and see, that's another part of like the black goo theory that I have. So when we see the recordings of them running, like what I think happened was some of them got infected with black goo. We see the one had died from the outburst chest cavity. So what I'm thinking is some of the black goo maybe got into him and like fucked him up. Whoops. I don't know if it was a xenomorph of some sort, because there were supposed to be. Well, okay. Well, here, hold on. We're almost done with this.
Yeah, and so Elizabeth essentially gets in the doom buggy after David says, "I know where they are," and then she goes, "Well, I'm gonna come get you," and then he goes, "Well, you know, it's gonna." I think he says like it's gonna take a long time to get to Earth or something. About
Well,
Earth.
he can plot a course easily. To
and then
Earth.
she goes, "We're not going home. We're going somewhere else. Or
Yeah.
we're going to where they came from," essentially. And I was like, "Oh damn." And then she sends out a New Year's Day.
Yeah.
Was the last transmission.
Yeah, 2094.
And she takes the engineer ship.
And then they blast off into space.
And then it fades back.
Yes, and so
And it sees the big starfish thing is rolled off of the tyrant. And what happens?
So this is where we get the birth of what is known as the Deacon. Okay, and so this
Because it does look a little different than a
Yes.
regular xenomorph.
and so I think it's supposed to be the first xenomorph, but with the way the Alien and Predator canon works, it's kind of wonky. So and what I was going to say 5 minutes ago was there were initial plans to have a engineer xenomorph that was supposed to be like 16 feet tall.
Damn.
And yeah, it was supposed to be monstrous, but then they were like, no, that would be like too much, and it'd be too directly tied to Alien. So instead, with this one, like with the way the trilobite worked, not quite like a normal face hugger. That's why there's speculation that the Deacon is a little bit different, because he's not a traditional xenomorph. Whereas if the engineer got hugged by a face hugger, it would have been a more traditional xenomorph. And then like my whole thing with xenomorphs from Alien versus Predator. So I think the black goo's been around for however fucking long it's been.
Well,
around.
it says it's been 2,000
Like,
years
well-
since the glyphs were even made.
Okay, yeah, and so
And then they've been in a chamber
I'm
for a couple thousand years, haven't they?
Yeah, and well, and even then, like the predators and stuff have been coming to Earth like since like Egyptian times, like 5,000, 6,000 years ago.
Yeah, so they've had access, and the aliens that were on Earth were planted by the predators.
And so what I'm curious is maybe the predators at some point discovered this black goo. I don't know if at the same time as the engineers. I don't know if necessarily, because with the way it seems that the engineers are just another alien race that essentially found a life-giving goo, drank it, turned Earth, or like seeded Earth life, and made humans by mistake. And then they realized that they made humans by mistake and we're going to kill them. So I'm thinking that the predators have been around for just as long, if not longer. They somehow discovered the black goo on a similar, if not the same planet, and somehow engineered their own version of the xenomorphs using humans at some point. Like maybe the facehuggers are some form of that, like how the trilobite was created. Maybe they did something with the predator. Maybe they infected a predator with the black goo, and a facehugger came out by accident, and then a facehugger infected somebody, and then you got your first xenomorph, and then so on and so forth. So like and it's a stretch like that. The black goo is essentially the catalyst for all the xenomorphs. So no matter where you put it, xenomorphs eventually will spring up, because we'll come to find too in the next movie we'll get a little bit more explanation about some of this stuff, and then the other Alien films kind of explain some of it too a little bit, but I don't know. That's just my take on it. That the black goo is essentially the DNA of the xenomorphs, and depending on how you interact it with a certain species or how it reproduces in and of itself, it determines what xenomorph or what alien creature comes out of said other creature.
Yeah. Because obviously we've seen that with the Predalien and
Yes.
the regular xenomorphs. There's obviously, if it gets into something else, then it makes a different.
Yeah,
thing.
it takes on DNA characteristics of the host body. So it's just the canon's all fucked up because of that,
Well, it's because of AVP.
yeah, because of AVP essentially. Because they took a lot of liberties with the alien canon. So
But they talk about. So that's the end of it. But one thing I'd like to talk about is at the very, very, very end of the credits, it says previous footage property of Wayland Corp building. It says Wayland Corp building better world
Yep.
since 10, 11, 12.
10, 11, 12. Okay, so that must mean that Wayland Corp wasn't officially started until 2012. So maybe Charles.
That's weird. This movie didn't even come out in October. It's so weird that
that is
that
weird.
they used
Yeah, because
that.
it did come out in 2012.
Yes, but it wasn't even close. We'll get into that because we are in the IMDb corner. This is where we go through a whole list of things. We went through the walkthrough. We've talked about some of the cool and off stuff that we liked and we didn't like. But now it is time to head over to IMDb and we're gonna check out some stuff. So let's go to some trivia. Let's see here. Total votes. We're going to do 5 things from trivia today. Here we go. Number 1, composer Mark Stintenfield. I think that's Straitenfield. Had the orchestra play his compositions backwards and then digitally reversed the compositions for the final film. This made the music sound unusual and unsettling, which he felt was right for the film.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah. Number 2, the androids' names in the Alien films follow an alphabetical pattern. In Alien, 1979, it's Ash. In Aliens, 1986, and Alien
Bishop,
3
yeah.
in 1992, it's Bishop. In Alien Resurrection, 1997, it's it's Cal. And in this film, it's David. I think that's
Call.
Is it Call?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I was like, is it supposed to sound like a name or is it supposed to sound like a word? All right, so there you go. So it was Ash, Bishop, Call, and David. Interesting. Number 3, designer H.R. Giger, who worked on the original design of the Xenomorph from Alien 1979, was brought in to assist in
Reverse engineering.
Reverse engineering the design of the aliens in the film. Giger died of fall-related injuries in 2014. What? Making this the last
know
movie
about that.
related to the Alien franchise that he worked on.
Wow, I'm gonna have to look into that. I didn't know that, dude. H.R. Giger was weird, man. Like, have you ever seen his art?
No.
Yeah, his artwork is what inspired the Xenomorph. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, because initially when they were gonna make the original Alien movie, they were like, we need to make something like weird, and then somebody saw a picture that he drew or painting, and they were like, that I want this guy to make my Alien, and then they hired him, and then
Wow.
the rest was history.
There you go. So if you guys have some weird designs, send that into Hollywood and say it's you.
Yeah, man, you'd be surprised.
Wow. Number 4, Charlize Theron found herself struggling during her action scenes due to her smoking habit, particularly the segments that required her to run through the sand in boots weighing 30 pounds. That's 14 kilograms.
That's a heavy ass boot.
That is a heavy-ass boot. And number 5, during production, Ridley Scott kept use of computer-generated imagery as low as possible, using CGI mainly in space scenes. Scott recalled advice visual effects. Wait, is that what it said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Supervisor Douglas Trumbull gave him on the set of Blade Runner 1982. Quote, if you can do it live, do it live, end quote. And also claimed that the practical visual effects were more cost effective than digital visual effects. Yeah, because it takes more time. It takes more time to do that. Yeah, so there you go. Do you want me to read another one? Or do you want to go move on?
Oh, no, I mean, it's probably not.
What's this one about Jesus Christ? Number 6, bonus trivia. Ridley Scott suggested that an engineer was sent to Earth to stop humanity's increasing aggression, but was crucified. Then, in the implication being that it was Jesus Christ. He felt, though, that this would be too obvious a religious allegory for the film. Probably a good move on that one, because he probably wouldn't have gotten.
I mean, he
probably
was,
gotten a good thumbs up on that.
yeah, because he was already touching on like religious themes, and I think that part was fine. Like, it wasn't too heavy-handed on that kind of stuff.
All right, so we head over to the loot box. Josh, what are we doing today? Quotes, goofs, crazy credits.
Yeah, let's do crazy credits.
Crazy credits. Well, there's only 4 of them, I guess.
Oh, one of them's one of the ones you just mentioned.
Okay, so here's 4 of them. We'll read all 4 of them. Number 1, there is a statement at the end of the closing credits. Oh, blah blah blah. Which is quote, previous footage property of Wayland Corp, building better world since 10, 11, 12. Wayland, and it says the
WaylandIndustries.com
URL.
/timeline.
Yeah. Number 2, the opening title appears to be piece by piece fashion of the original Alien 1979 movie. So it fades in the weird like glyphs, and then eventually forms Prometheus. Number 3, the opening credits takes place throughout the engineer scene on Earth.
Oh, sweet. Okay, yeah. So it was like a primordial Earth shot in the beginning.
And number 4, the 20th Century Fox, Dune Entertainment, and Scott Free Productions logo are shaded ice blue. I did notice there was a little more blue going on there. Did add a little bit there. All right, time to head.
It was a very blue paleted movie.
It did. It very much. So time to head over to my favorite segment, taglines, where we go through the taglines that were used to promote the movie in some way, shape, or form, or just used in general for the movie. There are 3 of them. So here we go. Number 1, the search for our beginning could lead to our end. Number 2, they went looking for our beginning. What they found could be our end. And number 3, we came from it. They will come for us. Okay, this one was not the best of the movies that we've done so far, but there you go. Release date was June 8th, 2012. So I have no idea where this 10, 11, 12 thing came from. Maybe that's when the movie came out on DVD, but it had only been in theaters for a couple of months.
It's possible, but they do have a website here, so I'm curious if that's like an.
You want to go check out the website there?
I'm gonna go look it up.
All right. Well, then I am going to look at the box office. Budget for this film was $130 million estimated. That, I think, is the most expensive movie that we have done so far. Opening weekend, it only made $51,050,101 in the United States, but it grossed over time $403,354,469 worldwide. So it made its money back tenfold, but it
Yeah.
did not do so great here in the States. But hey, yeah, well, opening weekend, I guess. Opening weekend, not bad. 51,000 or 51 million for its opening weekend, I guess, is not bad. But yeah, it's I guess it made its money back. So a lot of money back. We're going to tech specs unless you got the
No,
website. Does the website still work?
yeah, it just basically sends you to alienuniverse.com. And
Which is,
then-
I'm assuming, the official website.
Yes, yeah, and so it's just got all the movies here.
Buy them here. Did you know you can buy them digitally?
Yeah,
So
it's nothing special. It's just the website, basically.
couple tech specs here. Runtime is about 2 hours and 4 minutes.
The longest movie we've watched so
That
far.
is, yeah, because I don't think we've watched anything over 2 hours until
Correct.
now.
Yes.
The
The longest one before this was The Predator at 148, I believe.
Cameras used. I'm gonna butcher a lot of these names, but hey, here you go. 3 Attili Technica Atom 3D rig, and so I guess it was shot in 3D. Wow, that's pretty. Or maybe I don't know what that means.
I think it was shot in 3D.
3D Attili Technica SIP, which is stereophonic image processor, and Red Epic Zenus Ultra Prime, and oh my gosh, and
Engineer.
yeah, Optimo lenses.
I love the name of like things
Man, these
from
are-
other countries when they're technical. It's like superphonic synthesizer,
Yeah.
techno optimo. You
Yeah,
know, it's
I mean,
weird
some of these camera names are crazy because when you look at some of the cameras, you're like, oh well, the cameras like Canon and all them. You're like, oh well, there's the T3i, the Rebel series,
Yeah.
But then you get into like the more high end, expensive cameras, and they're like have these crazy serial numbered names.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like old computers having weird wonky names like that too, you know.
film length 3,379 meter. I don't know.
In Portugal,
Yeah, I don't know. 35 millimeter. Ah, got it. Okay.
because in Spain it was 3,410 meters.
Yeah, because it's not millimeters. That's weird. I don't know what that means because it's 35 millimeter film, but I don't know. That's weird. All right. Negative format, red code raw, shot in raw, and cinematic or cinematographic process. Good grief. What is it? Digital intermediate 2K master format and red code raw, which is 5K. 5K, baby. That's what red shoots in. Dual strip 3D source format. Printed film format is 35 millimeter. Anamorphic. Man, I feel like I'm still watching Prometheus with all these different morphic things. 70 millimeter horizontal, IMAX DRM blow up, dual strip 3D Kodak version 2383, and D Cinema also 3D version. So I guess the film was shot shot in red. So you got high end digital.
Well, I want to say I think I saw it when it was in 3D.
I don't think I saw it in 3D, but I definitely saw it in IMAX.
Yeah, I think I went and saw it in 3D, but I didn't see it in IMAX.
So yeah, there you go. If you buy this movie in 4K, it is originally 4K. So there you go. Actually, it's 5K is the original format. So they downsized that thing. Now we go into our ranking where we decide what is the rank compared to the other movies that we have seen so far. Josh, do you want to run down the list so far before we rate on? You don't have to go in particular order unless you want to. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, here, I'll just go in the order that we've watched them so far since we've done all the Predators and this is our first Alien one. And then we can go over the actual placement at the end. So, starting with Predator, this is the order that we've watched the movies. Predator 1987 was an 8.5.
Yep.
Predator 2, it was 6.5.
Yep.
AVP was 5.
Solid 5.
AVPR was 3.5. The Predator, which came out in 2017 or 2018.
That one came out in 2018.
2018. Yeah, I just couldn't remember. It was the more recent one. The Predator is a 4.5, and Predators came,
which I think in 2010.
Yes, that was 2010. Was a number 7.
Yes.
And then Prometheus came out in 2012, and then that's should I go ahead and give mine?
Sure.
Oh, okay. So, basically, this movie, it's not a bad movie, not by any means. It's very ambitious. You can tell that just based on the premise alone and the style of filming and the subject matter and all that kind of stuff. Overall, the visuals are very good. Practical effects are pretty decent. CGI is pretty decent. There are some rough spots in both of those areas. The movie overall is not really filled with like a whole lot of action, but once it gets ramped up, it stays pretty good. But overall, it just doesn't leave as much of an impression as some of the previous movies that we've watched. And granted, it is the first Alien movie that we're watching, or the Alien universe. So it's kind of hard to compare it to anything else besides Predators. But overall, I gave this movie a 6 out of 10. I was teetering between 6 and 7, but to me, this is not as fun as Predators and Predator 2. But
so you giving it a 6 is a borrow on our scale.
Yeah, like this. Yeah, this is one of those movies that it's good to see at least once. Maybe if you want to watch it again, like go out and rent it or borrow it, or whatever. But it's not necessarily one that you have to own. If you're a diehard Aliens fan, or an Alien franchise fan, I would say get it. But if you miss it and don't ever see it, you're not going to miss anything much. It's not pivotal enough to the Alien franchise to have to be seen. But it's still a good movie. It has a lot of things that it is trying to do, but it just doesn't quite get there.
Yeah, so for me, I had to refer to our scale here because a 7 is a worthy. And we gave a 7 to Predators last go.
Mm-hmm.
And because we gave it a 7 because it is worthy of buying that movie. We think that you definitely should at least own the movie, watch it. You're going to love it. You're going to enjoy your time. So when I thought to myself on that, and when I was watching Prometheus, I was like, I kind of had the same ideas. I was like, you know what? This is it's a pretty good movie. I like Ridley Scott, but it just definitely is one of those things that's like, it's kind of like the prequels to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like the prequels in
First
Star Wars. Like 1, 2, and 3. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're definitely going to want to watch 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just wanting to, like, where do I start with Star Wars? You would obviously watch, if you were going to start Star Wars, you'd watch 4, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's kind of how Prometheus is.
Yes.
You don't need to watch this first.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really necessary to the timeline. It explains some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if you watched AVP, it kind of also burns some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, it adds some things and maybe some different thoughts and whatnot. It gives the futuristic stuff a little bit. So you're kind of like, cool, we're going to see some futuristic space travel and whatnot. But they spend all their time on the planet. And they spend all their time in one area. Like just the ship and just the tombs, which are literally a drive away from each other.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, they
So
really didn't go anywhere.
They don't explore the planet. They don't do anything else. And when the fun parts about like Predators, like the only reason why I did this because we watched it last week is because they search the whole damn planet.
Yeah,
and it makes it fun because they're traveling all over the place. But and obviously they can't do that on this one because they're logically explaining, well, there's storms out there, so you don't want to explore too far.
Mm-hmm.
Or we found all of our stuff because here it is. We need to explore this one area before we continue on.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't get it. And so I gave it a 6 because I think that it is a definite borrow if you want to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
Buy it if you want to just watch an extra little thing. But the thing is when we saw Prometheus for the first time, it was just rumors that it might be an alien movie.
That's
if
true,
you watched
yeah.
it the first day it came out, you had no idea this was an alien movie. You just watched it, and then all of a sudden the end scene happens, and you're like,
Yeah.
there it is. There's the connection.
Yeah.
But when this movie came out, no one knew it was an alien movie.
Yeah, it was just rumored that like, oh, Ridley Scott's making a new movie. It might be an Alien prequel. It might not be. It seems like it has something to do with that universe. And then he even went on record saying, "Oh, it's not a prequel. It's just got strands of the DNA of Alien, but it's not a prequel," which was an outright lie.
Yeah, which
And-
Ridley Scott is definitely known for him just giving little bits of detail just so you can go see their movie.
Yeah.
And we'll explain that more into Alien because there's a lot of cool taglines and stuff that I can't wait to go into when we talk about Alien. But there's so many things that it kind of does. It like hits the bar, but it never climbs over the bar. It kind of
Right,
just goes, here's a really good movie, but that's about it. It's pretty good. It's pretty okay. It's worth a borrow. Not necessarily worth. You may need to own it. I bought I went to Best Buy and bought like the 6-pack movie.
Oh,
and
that
they
it had,
sell.
it had all of them.
Yeah,
in
it has all of them in there, and same with iTunes. iTunes does
so
it.
wait,
Vudu
just
does it.
question. So
Yeah.
when you bought that, did it have like the director's cut of Alien? the
Nope, it's
extended-
just the Blu-ray version.
It's
Now-
just
Now there is a 4K version of Prometheus. I was tempted to buy, but I was like, more bang for my buck. It's less than $10 a movie if I buy it this way, so I bought the collection.
Because I have like the director's cut of Alien. I have the extended.
I
cut.
don't know that yet.
Oh, okay.
So I'll see
Well,
if I
yeah.
have those versions. But I know
Okay,
there is
yeah.
no, like you were saying, there's
Yeah,
no director's
Prometheus
cut of
doesn't have it.
Prometheus.
I don't know about Covenant.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that one doesn't have it either because that just came out like a couple of years ago.
So so anyway, there's just a lot that I feel if I wasn't doing this series because I had already seen it. I saw it in theaters and my dad owns it, and it's kind of like I saw it twice already, and this was my third time watching
Now,
it.
compared to those, how do you feel about the movie now compared to the first time you saw it?
Well, the first time I saw it, it took me for a loop because I didn't know that it was an Alien movie. I knew my dad really wanted to see it, like the woo woo. Do you remember that? Like the trailer, that woo, like the siren going.
I think I do.
Yeah, that was pretty much all it was. Boom, boom.
Yeah, that was when like trailers had that. Because
Yeah.
that was like around the same time that like Inception and all that came
pretty
out,
much,
right?
yeah. And so like all you would see in Regal is just this little like teaser trailer of this is what's going to happen, and then they did it again for Alien Covenant.
Yeah.
And so because that was more of a obviously club over the head that hey, this is an Alien movie.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, everyone wanted to go see this movie because when it came out, and especially as soon as everyone found out that it was an Alien movie, everyone wanted to find out what it is. But the xenomorphs don't even show up in this movie. But it's not called Alien, so I'm not going
Yeah.
to dock it points for that. That's not why I'm docking it points. But they show up at the very end. That a xenomorph asterisk mark shows up.
I was gonna say
so.
it's not even a traditional xenomorph.
Yeah,
in
so
a sense.
The thing is like with all that said, it doesn't need to be a part of the series. It's just kind of a cool thing to see.
Yeah.
It's a cool space movie.
Yeah,
That's really it. And I
it's-
think that's all that Ridley Scott really wanted to do was make a
Yeah.
cool space movie, which he did. But that's about where he hit it.
It's like the pretty girl with air in her head, basically. Like, it looks good. It sounds like a great idea, but then it really has no substance.
Yeah, but once you get in there, it's
There's
a
not
media
much-
pull there.
yeah, there's not much rattling around inside there. So
there you go. I
Yeah.
actually did not expect you to give a 6. So the way that we do our rating
well,
things,
because the reason why I'd asked how you felt about it before as opposed to now is me personally, I have found that I enjoy this movie more.
interesting. Okay.
Because when I first saw it in theaters, I hated it. Because I heard the rumors about it being an Alien movie, and I was
see, that was what got you though.
and I
see,
went in
I
with-
did not do that.
Okay,
I
I
saw
went in-
opening weekend.
Yeah, I went in with expectations, and I
Okay.
was like, "Oh, okay, it's an Alien prequel, so hopefully there'll be an alien in it." And then we saw the engineers and stuff, blah blah blah, and then it was like, "Oh, okay, well, that's not really like an alien." And then you see the trilobite or whatever, and then you see the deacon at the end, and I'm like, "What? Like that doesn't really make sense, Like it kind of didn't really click with me." And then I
Yeah.
watched it again at some point a few years ago, and I was like, "Okay, this movie's not like as bad now that I kind of like let that sour taste in my mouth settle a little bit." And then when I watched this most recent time, I was like, this movie's like I can see what it's trying to do, and I get that it's not necessarily supposed to be an Alien prequel like how Ridley Scott didn't initially want it to be. but then it kind of turned into one because people thought it was, and then he outright did that with Alien Covenant because he was like, okay, well, I kind of made a mistake because I kind of alienated some of my fan base. Yeah, no pun intended. But yeah, and so it just, I don't know. I can appreciate the movie now more so for what it is than back then when I thought it should have been more clearly related to Alien.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably because Alien Covenant.
Yeah, and the thing is like, it's part of the reason why I don't give it a 5, which is a meh for me.
Yeah.
Or not for me, but from Primal Target. Because the difference between a meh is more of like, you really don't need to buy this at all.
Yeah.
Any way, shape, or form. You don't really need to buy it. If you do, great. If you see it for like $4, go ahead and pick it up.
Yeah.
But it's with a 6, it's definitely like, hey, if you see it and it's still full price, it's probably worth buying. But to add to like your movie collection, but that's about where you're gonna kind of, you'll watch it once or twice every so often of years.
Yeah.
But this is definitely not one that's like
yeah.
Predator or Predators where you're just gonna, you could throw it on with like a group of friends and just enjoy the movie together.
This is a check mark in the collection.
Yeah,
that's
and
all.
the thing is also, if you do like the movie, if you think it's more than a 6, obviously IMDb didn't agree with us because I think the average rating on that is a 7.
Yeah,
so,
I think so. And that's out of like over 500,000 votes.
Yeah, so I mean, take it with a grain of salt. It's our ranking system, and but as for this season, it will land with a solid 6. So
yeah, because Metacritic gave it a 64. So I mean, if we were doing out of 100, then that would match essentially what we were giving it.
Yeah, that's a 6.4.
Because I was complaining essentially before we had started the podcast. Like, I really wish we could do decimal points on
Yep, there's only 4 letters in there, but
Yeah.
seem to have made different options for them.
Yeah,
IMDb, International Movie Database.
That's right. Okay, yeah, on IMDb. Okay,
Yeah.
I wish there was decimal points because I personally, if there was decimal points, I would have given it a 6.5.
Yeah, I mean that was the other thing is normally our rating system does say we can use like on our normal Primal Target stuff when they were reviewing games. We stopped reviewing games, but we brought it back for this show just because it would keep things in order of our ranking system for the end of the season.
Yeah.
So with that, we stuck with IMDb stuff because we're rating them through that because we're getting all of our information from that. So it just made more sense to keep with that. And yes, it does suck. I don't like rating on a 10-point scale. I prefer the 100-point scale. That way, you could kind of slip stuff here.
Yeah, it's a little bit more finesse.
Things do get a little bit more messy, but you do get a little bit more of a, if one is a little bit better than the other, but one is definitely not even close to the other, then you can kind of slip it in there.
I suppose with only 12 movies or like, whenever we get to future seasons, if they're like 10 to 12 movies long or whatever, I mean, it maybe if we had like 50 movies to choose from, we'd need a much more like finer scale, but with this amount of movies, I guess, we can make do.
Alrighty, so where are we sitting at so far?
Oh.
Since Prometheus just got it 6.
Oh, okay, you wrote it on there. Sweet. Okay.
I did.
All right. So our new ranking. All right. So Predator 87 still holding first place. Damn.
Man.
It has gone through 7 movies. We've
gone
through 7
weeks in a row, ladies and
It
gentlemen.
has held number 1 spot 7 weeks. Okay, so that's sitting at number 1 at 8.5. And then following in second place, we've got Predators, the 2010
Yes,
movie,
2010.
At 7. And then
it'd be Predator 2.
Yes, third place is Predator 2 at 6.5. And then pulling up in a new 4th place.
Number 4, baby.
Yeah, we've got Prometheus coming in with a solid 6. And then after Prometheus, we now move AVP down 1 spot at a solid 5 to 5th place, right?
Yep.
And then 4th place would be The Predator, the 2018 movie. That's 4.5, and then AVPR still coming in dead last with 3.5.
Dang, I forgot we gave that such a low rating.
AVPR is never coming out of the basement. I'm just gonna say that right now because none of these movies are that bad.
It's so crazy. We gave that a terrible. We gave it a terrible.
Yeah.
It's not it's the lowest rating thing we have ever rated on the thing. And you know what? I actually do like the fact that we are watching all of these because it's forcing us to watch bad movies
Yes.
sometimes.
Yeah.
It forces us to see this is the gutter. It can't get any lower than this.
Yeah.
We got to climb up from here.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, granted, we went down a little bit from Predators for Prometheus, but I mean they're pretty close. Just think of this as like one of those like when you're on the roller coaster and you go, because we've been using that as our analogy, where it kind of goes like it does the little up and down hills, like they're
Yeah.
just the minor hills that kind of give you a quick jolt before you go around that second corner to get up the next like biggest drop, because it's not the big drop. But we've essentially hit like the second big drop, and now we're just kind of going through a couple little ups and downs. But yeah, so Alien Covenant will be our next film. And that came out when? That was
2017.
2017. Okay,
Man,
so a
it's only
couple
been
years.
2 years for that.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. I thought that movie was a little bit older, but
Yeah,
2017.
I thought it was 2015 to be honest. But
Yeah, no, 2017
Damn.
is when it will be. So
wow, so it took 5 years for a sequel to come out to Prometheus.
yeah, Danny McBride.
Yeah.
in this one.
He's like the only person I know in the movie besides
Michael Fassbender?
besides
Yeah,
David.
Yeah.
like I was gonna say
it was
well,
was good
no,
to see that he got brought back into doing.
my
that
bad.
character.
I take that back. James Franco's in the movie for like 3 seconds.
Isn't he in the very
He's
outright very beginning
yes,
of the movie?
Yeah, James. Okay, so I'm just gonna spoil this right now. James Franco was a character in the next movie. He was playing the captain of the ship, and I won't explain what happens in the movie, but most of his scenes are like supplemental material that were filmed prior to the movie for like 5-minute little snippet things.
Essentially, because of James Franco and Danny McBride's friendship,
Yeah.
James Franco got in an Alien movie.
Yes,
So
that's exactly it.
essentially what happened.
Yes.
But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be the end of this episode. So next week, your homework is to watch Alien
Covenant.
Alien Covenant. For some reason, I saw 2 P's here, and I was like, wait a minute. So yes, Alien.
Yeah, Predators, Predator 2, The Predator,
Well, Predators and Prometheus are right
Prometheus,
next to each other.
and now we've got Alien Covenant, Aliens.
Yeah,
Alien
now we're
3,
back in the
Alien
A's.
Resurrection. Yeah.
So Alien Covenant, the 2017 film, go and watch that, and then check back with us next week because we got another episode of Movie Combat coming at you, and we will see where that rates on the scale for Primal Target's Movie Combat Season 1.
Can it dethrone the current champion?
Yeah, Predator's sitting at an
7 weeks
8.5. I
strong.
never thought an 8.5 would sit at the top for so long.
Yeah, isn't it kind of crazy?
It is pretty crazy.
We started out so strong.
We did. And then it took a hard dip at
Yeah.
6.5 for Predator 2. But anyway, yes, go and check that out. Leave in the comment section below what you guys think about Prometheus, what you would give it on a scale of 1 to 10. 0 to 10 is what we usually rate it on. What would you give it? And thumbs up this video if you're watching on YouTube. If you are listening to the audio version, there are 2 versions of this. So if your friend is on the other platform, tell them to go download it, because on iTunes, just search Primal Target, bada bing, there it is, and you can listen to PT3600, Bitcade, and this show, and yeah, it's going to be awesome, and it's amazing. So go and tell your friends. If they have an Android phone, say, oh, friend, not to fret, because there is a way for you to listen to. Go download Podbean, and you can listen to other podcasts like this one, and you can say, hey, go download it because it's a fun podcast. Also, rate it on all of those platforms, because if you rate it, our show gets boosted up, and then other people get to enjoy this show as well as the other stuff.
That'll allow us to bring you more content.
Exactly. You want us to keep doing. You want us to do this daily. You got to get us the stuff. You got to get us the popularity. Build that PT Nation. Rise, PT Army, and enjoy the rest of your day, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.
See ya.